Some of the content of Patriots Unfiltered may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The world's original podcast.
This is Patriots Unfiltered.
Presented by Toyota's official website for deals, buyatoyota.com.
Patriots Unfiltered.
Oh, that's it? No open? Nothing? I figured after the draft you'd have this big montage.
Usually do it, and I did it.
Oh, okay. All right, well, welcome to Patriots Unfiltered. It
Loaded into
is
my system.
Tuesday after the draft here at Gillette Stadium. It's Deuce, Tamara, Evan, Paul, myself, Matt in the booth. And I think overall everybody's pretty pleased with the haul over the weekend.
I think so. Seems like it. I mean, definitely some questions about, I think, still remain along the offensive line. But you said you had to weaponize the offense and get rookies, and, it feels like they pretty much hit most of their needs. I mean, probably a couple position groups that maybe just a little bit surprised that they didn't spend a day 3 draft pick on, which isn't all that big of a deal. But I would say I'm excited. It's just I think the questions about left tackle kind of continue.
Yeah, it's still in terms of quality and depth. But when's the last time we went into a draft saying, here are the top 3 needs, bing, 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 and that's the things that they exactly did.
Yeah, and I think we said, too, like, they're not going to be able to hit all 3 perfectly, and I think they hit 1 perfectly, and, the receivers, I really like the receivers, but, I think that there is, some discussion to be had about, they tried to trade back up, so clearly they wanted to, maybe get somebody that was a little bit higher on their board than the guys they ended up with. I say that as I like those guys, and then, the tackle, I think, is the biggest question there, the 3rd pick, which – can that kid move to the left side? That's the question we already had with some of the guys that already exist on the roster.
Yeah, there was definitely something going on at the end of the first round with the Bills. And I think
Breer's been all over.
Yeah,
what
we
trade
might have
offers
missed out on
that
somebody that we wanted there in terms of a receiver.
Yep. Yeah, that seems like the case. But overall, reaction seems, pretty good. Just needed offense, took offense, and I'm excited to see these guys get out here in the next few days, weeks, I should say.
Not if you listen to Paul's shows yesterday, which I did because I had to hear what the Bert and Ernie had to say about the draft, and I think the biggest thing that they said was probably the one critique I hear the most from people. So it's I guess fair is just did they miss runs at receiver and tackle and how they played the board, not necessarily the players that they got, but how they played the game, of the draft board at receiver. You mentioned that it sounds like they tried to trade back up in the first round. Like most people think Xavier Legette was the guy that they wanted. They end up in a run of 6 receivers and they get the 6th guy. Tackle, it seemed like Caden Wallace, maybe they missed out on the Patrick Pauls and the Kingsley Suamatias. But I think at the end of the day, like we've seen, it doesn't always go that the top guy taken or the way that the run unfolds. They could end up being right in the long run that Jalen Polk is a better player than Ladd McConkey.
Or they could end up being lucky.
Either way you want to put it.
Yeah, because if you were trying to move up, obviously there was somebody you were targeting, but it might turn out that the guy you were targeting isn't as good as the guy you ended up with.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but I think in terms of the positions, I think it was pretty good. I'm intrigued by the second wide receiver, Baker. He's got a little dog in him, I think. I think he might have some compete in him.
And I feel like you need that. In the receiver and corner position, you need those guys who are confident in themselves.
Yeah.
And according to him, grab your popcorn, have it ready to go when you get to Gillette Stadium.
Yeah. I mean,
the
now,
quote there.
reality's going to hit him in the face when he gets here.
Yeah.
But listen,
or Stacey James.
Yeah, like Parcells said, if they don't bite when they're puppies, they won't bite when they're dogs. So let's see what happens.
Boomer bust, it feels like with him. But it's funny though because some of the people who are critiquing the draft and are like, "Well, I think the 4th round receiver is the best pick," and I'm like, "Well, how does that make sense?" Like, that's like because you think in your mind of whatever you've done that this guy might go off. Like, I don't know. It just feels silly. Like they obviously Polk was a better player and they took him higher for a reason, but. And I also just didn't like the 6th best receiver. That's an easy way to put it, but did you really want Lab? I mean, I would have taken Jalen Polk over. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I think you get to that point, and it's kind of in the eye of the beholder. So, you can say he was the 6th receiver taken, but does that necessarily mean he was their 6th receiver?
Right.
I don't know if that's
true.
I
think the big thing about it is, and we were talking about this on Catch 22, I had all these guys in the same tier at receiver. Ladd McConkey, Roman Wilson, Troy Franklin, Jalen McMillan, the other Washington receiver, they were all in the same tier for me. And I think at the end of the day, you take the guy that stylistically plays the way that you want to play, and that's the separator, right? It's not necessarily. Yeah, I had a slightly higher grade on Ladd McConkey than I did on Jalen Polk, but maybe they want a guy that's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. You know, a 186-pound receiver in McConkey versus a 205-pound receiver in Polk. So that skill set tipped the scales towards Jalen Polk for them.
No,
and that's different.
There was an email that came across that you guys addressed in Catch 22 toward the end, which I'm going to push back on you a little bit, Evan, where Elliot Wolf said, you know, where I come from, it's not so much X, Y, Z. It's are they good? Are they good receivers? You know, and I think that's refreshing. I know the email that sent it in said, should we be worried about that? I say no. I mean, can the guy separate? Can he catch it when you throw it to him? You know, like
the second part for sure with these guys.
Yeah, you know, so that's more important than is he a Z, you know, frame or is he
XYZ 1, 2, 3? Here we go again.
Can we get a bunch of guys that can get separation and catch the ball?
Yeah, I just think that you always say to watch what they do and not what they say. And when I look at these two guys, I think they're extremely complementary players. I think Javon Baker is an outside receiver. If you don't want to put X on him because we don't like the letters, that's fine. But Javon Baker is an outside receiver. Jalen Polk is an inside-outside receiver, can do a little bit of both. And so I think these two guys are very complementary, and they're also very complementary to Drake May. Like their skills overlap with what he does well. So I think in a lot of ways, Elliott says that, we don't necessarily prioritize positions and things like that. Well, you drafted a down the field outside receiver and you drafted a Z receiver that moves inside and out. So by your actions, it looks like you said we're going to get two guys that are at least a little bit different here so that they're not stepping on each other's toes. That's just the way that I look at it. I think that people are more excited about Javon Baker because he's flashier. There's no doubt about it that Javon Baker's highlights are better than Jalen Polk's highlights. So if you're into that flash, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily wrong, but you're going to look at Javon Baker as a more flashy, big play. I mean, had averaged like 22 yards per catch last year in the Big 12. So, he's one of those guys that plays that way. Whereas Jalen Polk is going to be the steady, chain-moving possession receiver that might not have as much flash to him, but might be more consistent.
Was Javon Baker the number one guy at UCF?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, he led the Big 12 in receiving last year, just the entire conference, and is a big play machine. I mean, the only two guys that had more 20-plus yard catches than Javon Baker were Dunze and Neighbors in the whole FBS. So this is a big play guy. That's what he does.
Does anyone hold against him transferring out of Alabama?
I mean,
they all transferred now.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
but
there
you're
was
going for like the elite of the elite to a lower, level school.
It's Big 12 now.
Yeah.
Like to me, there was a time that I would have, but not anymore. Like everybody transfers now. So.
Yeah, and it's hard too.
I'm just throwing it out there.
I think it's hard too at Alabama when you have so many 5-star guys. It's like, how are you gonna get playing time?
Right.
So
you could be good.
Like the Andy Harts of the world would be like, just fight it out and prove yourself.
Be better.
And
be
like
better.
In fairness, like there's probably a time, 8 or 10 years ago that I would have been like that. Like, compete.
Yeah.
It's too easy
there's something
now, though.
admirable about what Matt Castle did at USC.
Which is nothing.
No, it's compete and try to win the job. Don't take your ball and go home
I know.
and just go somewhere else.
Right.
Now, you could make an argument that had he gone somewhere else, maybe he would have been drafted higher, but that didn't prevent him from having an NFL career. So
I mean, what would have happened to, for example, let's just say Jalen, if he didn't transfer from Oklahoma to Alabama? What would have happened to him?
I don't know.
Jalen.
Yeah.
Oh,
who are you talking
sorry,
about?
I'm like, my brain is blanking right now.
You mean Hurts?
Yes.
Okay, he went from Alabama
to
Oklahoma.
To
Yes.
Oklahoma,
So imagine if
right.
he would have stayed there and competed with Tua. Like, would he be where he is right now if
Yeah.
he would have just stayed there as the backup behind Tua?
I would say he probably would be because he was already the starter before that. Now, if he had never played at Alabama, that's different.
You think he would have been the same player he is now?
Yeah, like he never
Like
saw
with
the
that-
Same
field
player
again.
or the same draft pick? He probably
Both.
wouldn't have gotten drafted in the second round.
Yeah.
I think the performance at Oklahoma probably got him second round status. He'd be the same player.
Interesting.
I don't know.
I think
Lincoln Riley had a lot to do with his development. I think.
I mean, maybe.
At
I have no way of knowing that for sure. You guys might be right on that.
No, I'm just saying, like, if he stayed there behind Tua and never saw the field again.
Yeah, I think
But he would have.
I think giving these guys control of their future, I think is a good thing. You know, I would have been one of those guys, you know, had I had any ability, and I got into a sport and, you know, I wasn't seeing as much playing time, if at all. I'd want to leave and go. I'm not out here to watch. I want to play.
Yeah.
It's so much easier now, too, with the way things are. I mean, used to what? You'd have to sit out a year. You'd have to apply.
Yeah.
For, you know, it's a whole process. And now it's just like, I'm going to the portal. I mean, it's
I also
so
think
common.
we have to put it in context of this was the golden era of Alabama receivers. Like his freshman year, it's Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, John Mechie. It doesn't get much better than that in a college receiver room. Yeah. And then the year after that, Jamison Williams transferred in from Ohio State. So it was Jamison Williams and John Mechie. And he was probably supposed to be the third guy in that group. But they ended up going in a different direction at that point, and that's when he decided to transfer after that season. But this was in a run of Alabama receivers that was just ridiculous. Every single year they were like a receiver factory, and I don't necessarily blame him for the fact that he couldn't beat out Devontae Smith, who won the Heisman Trophy.
But I'm glad you got the timeline right, because I've heard a lot of, he was behind Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. Like, he went to Alabama in June of the COVID year. And, technically, Jalen Waddle was still there. He's a true freshman coming. He wasn't going to play over the starting,
especially not for Nick Saban.
Wide receiver. No. Yes, like you're not going to like step in, especially in COVID. They didn't practice.
Yeah,
they didn't have any of the preparation that they normally would have. And then the next year, you know, it was John Mechie, not Jalen Waddle.
Yeah,
you know, and Evan perfectly put that. Still good players, Jamison Williams and John Mechie. But he probably should have been in line to get more playing time now his redshirt freshman year than he did. Then he left.
Yep.
Yeah, and you hear some of the comments that he had in his press conference. And from what we know about Bill and Nick Saban, like, does that really strike you as the type of guy that was going to win Nick Saban over?
Right.
Unless he was just incredibly talented.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I do think it's important to put in context that the receiver rooms that he was in at Alabama were stacked. Like, this is not, we're not just talking about, you know, a receiver room like the Patriots right now where there's all this opportunity. You're not going to beat out a Heisman Trophy winning receiver for targets.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a good weekend. If you followed along with us on Patriots.com and social, you saw some really cool content. Drake May seeing his locker for the first time, I thought was really neat. And I think he genuinely was, you know, excited. Yeah. You know, like,
it looks like an excited kid. I mean, he makes me feel old. I was like, my God, I could be this kid's dad. But no, he's. I said it during the shows. I just thought it was cool, the relationship with him and his brothers and his girlfriend, and the line of, you know, you're getting me, you're getting them. That stuck out to me. So it's real clear. I mean, I think he might be a little bit sheltered. You know, I think that he's never been out of North Carolina, and, you know, he's been the little brother. So, you know, we'll see, because I think what kind of adversity has he faced? I mean, this is all he's going to be thrown into the fire of all fires now.
Oh yeah.
And you know, it's I compared to, you know, not the player, but I remember sitting here with Mac when Mac first came in, and it was pretty cool. Like when we first drafted Mac, I was excited, and you know, it's you realize how much he had to go through from that point on, and, you know, the injuries and the mental stuff and just it's a real grind. And so, you know, Drake May's 21. He's got a great attitude. He's got some, you know, receivers around him that I think will help him, you know, have a good chance. I mean, we haven't talked about Joe Milton yet. I mean, but I think having another rookie quarterback in there as well is in that way is advantageous, that, you know, they're all going to be able to work together and hopefully develop. But it's just the hard times are waiting for him, and he's going to have to prepare and be ready to overcome that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like he's already gone through more adversity than Mac has, though. Like, Mac was, like, sure, Mac was waiting behind 3 quarterbacks to play, but he's He's like Drake May has dealt with more at North Carolina having nothing this year, a bad offensive line, bad weapons around him, and he's still found his way to be a number 3 overall pick. Obviously not as productive as a year as his previous year, but he played with nothing. Mac had a whole lot around him.
Well, he comes in with more college games than Mac did,
For sure.
So,
Slightly,
so that's good.
Yeah, he has more football adversity.
Yeah.
I would say than Mac Jones.
For sure.
But your point about him, I don't know if shelter's the right word, but like
Right.
he is from North Carolina. He was originally committed to Alabama, decommitted from Alabama to stay in North Carolina and go to UNC. And I don't, like he said, other than to travel to road games, he's never left the state of North Carolina. So that's going to be something that will be, I'm sure, for any kid. Like I remember, moving out to LA when I graduated college. It's a culture shock, like for anybody that age. So that will be interesting to see how. I don't know if he's ever really been in like true winter.
Yeah.
Before,
which I didn't hear anyone ask.
A vision of LA, Evan.
That's where
comes
I
out in like a
thrived.
parka. He's like, you don't have to dress in winter clothes here.
That was.
I will say, I feel like from a person standpoint, a lot of people don't get out of their state until they graduate college. Just saying. Like, unless your family is wealthy and can take you on vacations, like, I know a ton of people that I went to school with that never went anywhere until after they graduated.
Yeah.
So
Did they have to perform their job in the snow after they graduated?
I'm just
I can
saying.
promise you, I was not wealthy and I left the state.
I never was on a plane until college.
Yeah. Like, there's so many people who haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's just for me. It's also just his comportment. Like he's just not. Doesn't seem like a very worldly kid. Like it seems like he's known sports and North Carolina and football, and that's kind of it, right? And I mean, look, it's fine. Like I mean, you're right. Everybody's been like that before, but I just think when you look at a kid who's going to go through the kind of ups and downs that Mac had to deal with, like that's just waiting for him. It's going to happen. You don't know how anybody's going to react to that.
Yeah,
I
I mean, Mac's
remember-
first year he was coddled. He was, Josh McDaniels took care. I mean, he started right away, but I
Yeah.
don't think he was expected to do everything right away.
But like you look at other players too that are coming into the NFL who transferred schools, who didn't go great at a place, had to pick up shop and go somewhere else and reestablish themselves, those kind of things. So those little things all add up for me, and it's not a negative. It's just something that I think that's going to be his biggest area of growth. Like I always thought it when Gronk was drafted, he seemed so innocent and pure, and I was like, man, I don't want to think about like Gronk when he's bitter and jaded and old, and not that that's what Drake May is going to be. Gronk didn't become that, but there's going to be grown-up Drake May who's been out to the woodshed and had to deal with getting his doors blown off and getting lit up and those kind of things.
Well, let's hope that he doesn't have to deal with that.
Every quarterback has to
saying
some
that to,
extent,
like,
though, right?
half jokingly, but like at the same time, you use Gronk as an example. Gronk was just awesome, like right away, and if there's something to be said for the fact that he could be great, and then like all this other like he's obviously gonna have ups and downs, but like if he's as good as
If he's an all-time great, he'll be okay.
But that's ultimately we can talk and we will, and we're going to continue to do it about this draft class. That's ultimately what it's going to come down to. If Drake May hits, we're going to love this draft class.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, there's not a whole lot those other guys are going to be able to do to overcome that.
Because
And
the
for
receivers
draft
won't
class-
pop without him popping, probably.
I mean, I don't think that they really profile as guys that lift the quarterback anyway. Especially Polk, I think, is sort of a guy who's just kind of solid and steady.
Yeah.
Like at his best, he's like, there's Jalen Polk again on third down, making a play. That's high end Jalen Polk to me, and that's great. That's exactly what you're looking for. But if the quarterback can't get him the ball, I don't think he's going to be the kind of guy that's going to make the quarterback better if he just can't play. So ultimately, this is coming down to Drake May.
We mentioned Joe Milton. A lot of people
Huge fan.
kind of were surprised that the Patriots took him in the 6th round. What do we think?
Honestly, I think it's really funny that we use the pick that we got from the Jaguars to draft a quarterback with way better talent than Mac Jones. Obviously, he has some accuracy issues, but great arm and unbelievable athlete.
Yeah?
I'm kind of torn on that one. I'll let the boys kind of lay out the negative part of it, but it's just Evan, I don't want to steal your line, but it's exactly what I thought, which was kind of felt mind gamey with like the Mac stuff. Here, we're going to take another quarterback now, and what's the point?
And to be
what's
fair,
the point?
And
I
to be
agree.
fair, like you need a better backup than Bailey Zappi. So,
But he's
not.
But he's a developmental player.
Yeah.
And I just, my whole thing is that I know we're going to get out there in the spring and the summer, and in shorts and a t-shirt, Joe Milton is going to look just as impressive as Drake May. The arm talent, the mobility, the size, like all of it is going to be just as impressive. And to Deuce's point just a second ago about how does Drake May handle it, how does Drake May handle it when in the second half of preseason games against scrubs, Joe Milton is lighting it up, and then we have people calling into our shows and stuff like that saying, well, why don't they give Joe Milton a try?
Yeah. I didn't like anything about the pick because I just don't think he's very good. I mean, sneaky, he's not good at football. But the intangible stuff that Evan just introduced is why I think I don't like it the most. And we had a really good in-depth post on the mailbag this week, and I sort of tried my best to sort of downplay it, but I got to be honest, the guy made a lot of good points about that kind of stuff. Like, if he goes out there and does a Michael Bishop, Fred, how does that impact Drake May? Michael Bishop wasn't anything great. He just was a tremendous athlete who ran around and did eye-popping things in preseason games that were meaningless, and that's just going to create sort of unwanted controversy and talk.
Here's what
I feel like he needs to be mentally tough. Like, if you're going to go out there and pee your pants because Joe Milton has a great second half.
I didn't say anything about peeing his pants. Like, it's just not a good situation. We spent 3 years making excuses for Mac Jones because you didn't have the right things around him, and they ruined him. This, to me, seems like you're going out of your way to create controversy.
I don't get that.
I don't know. I don't think so.
The guy can't play.
Here's what
that's the bottom line.
Since he can't play, Drake May should have nothing to worry about. Period.
He doesn't have anything to worry about.
It's not about that. It's about the people that tried to call us and tell us that Malik Cunningham was the answer.
Correct.
They're going to see him throw 175-yard pass in the first preseason game in the fourth quarter and say that this guy is better than the guy they drafted.
This guy's not a tenth of what Malik Cunningham was.
I don't think this coach. I think the coaches will deal with that. But
you're missing the point. People are completely missing the point on it. It's not about who's the guy. Drake May is the guy.
Yeah.
It's 100%. It's Drake May. But you're creating a possibility of having all kinds of noise, which you're supposed to work to try to avoid.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think the only people making noise are the media.
Fans.
Right.
Fans
Ignore
will
it.
be making noise. I will guarantee it in the summer. People like you will be saying, look at the arm. Look at the athleticism.
But I'm also
That's
saying
what people
to
are going to
Drake
say.
Man up. Be mentally tough.
It's
Who
got
cares?
nothing to do with Drake May. It's the noise that you're creating around.
That's just like saying
he can handle it perfectly.
That's just like saying to the current wide receiver room, they should be scared right now because of all the people that we just drafted.
Right.
You need 6 receivers. You don't need more
we
than
have
one
like
quarterback.
12 receivers right now.
Right.
You don't need more than one quarterback. You need all those receivers.
Like Rager and
we have like 12 receivers right now.
They should be worried.
They do not.
Yeah.
They have 4 receivers that are going to make the team that we know of.
Oh, but there's
we'll
a lot.
see what happens after that.
There's a lot of them on the roster.
There's a lot of scrubs on the roster that aren't in the NFL.
But I agree with Tamara. I think if Drake May if Drake May isn't showing that he has a good arm and is athletic, then we have problems.
Well,
you know,
I did not say
it's
that.
not about what Joe Milton.
Wait, I didn't say that.
I know. I'm saying it. It's not about what Joe Milton shows us this summer. It's about what Drake May shows us.
I just think you take every shot you can to get players to help your team.
Yeah, but here's what I hope.
They didn't.
Here's what I hope. I hope happens with Joe Milton. You know, he said it's not going to happen. I'm going to be a tight end. Rod Mayo said we drafted him as a quarterback.
Yeah.
But I hope he gets out there and it becomes very apparent he cannot be a quarterback. And I hope at some point he realizes that, and they have a sit down and say, "Hey, this isn't isn't working out. What do you think? How about taking some reps at tight end? What do you think?"
I don't think his footwork and his feet are not like they could train him, I guess, long term to be a tight end, but I don't think his athleticism translates very well to like receiver. I'm with Paul on this. I understand that Drake May should be mentally tougher. I agree with that point, but why test it? Like, why do we have to test these guys mentally all the time where they have to deal with all this crap? And it's the same thing that they did with Mac Jones. You know, we have people out here on Monday Night Football chanting the backup quarterback's name. You know, we have all this kind of stuff. We have people
before the draft. Every one of us said, "Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they draft a quarterback later in the
draft."
a quarterback.
Yeah, like Michael Pratt,
a developmental prospect that's not going to like create any waves. This is going out of your way to just have a physical freak out there to run around.
Oh my God.
Okay, listen.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I don't have the same opinion as you on the player.
You don't
sorry.
have to.
Paul, you have to get so defensive.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden the Patriots made a pick, and 3 of us don't like it, and we're like cast aside.
Who
like,
said
You're
who's
not
casting
cast
you
aside.
I think
This
you're
is
being
hilarious.
really babyish about this.
Okay, whatever.
You know, people have a
all
different opinion. Now you're like
Fine,
ready to
let's
fold
get
up
to
like
the
a
guest.
baby. I think you're being a baby.
I didn't
Whatever.
even think of
keep,
Evans.
keep mocking and making fun of it. That's
the Malik Cunningham. I didn't even think of that, and that's my thing too. I'm with the Malik Cunningham.
Yeah.
Sorry. But
I mean, when Michael Bishop was running around, people were screaming for Michael Bishop. It didn't affect the quarterback. I mean, it was not a big deal.
no, and I mean, and
What
honestly,
year was the quarterback
like-
in when that happened?
I forget. It doesn't. I don't.
6.
Okay. But so what?
well,
Oh, it's the
what?
same.
No.
It's the same. 6-year
Wait,
veteran as opposed
you really
to a
think the
rookie.
coaches are going to
The
Drake
coaches,
May
no. I don't think the
are going to be
coaches-
like, oh my God.
I don't think the coaches care.
The fans
Obviously
are yelling.
they
The
don't.
fans are yelling for Joe Milton. What are we going to do? I don't know.
Why do you like?
So what if they drafted Spencer Rattler instead of Joe Milton? Would it be the same
I think
response?
the same thing. If he came out and was lighting
Yeah.
it
Would it
up
be
in a
the same
preseason
response?
game,
Yes.
people would be saying, "Oh, look at Spencer Rattler."
Because the thing is like Joe Milton has physical traits that, again, I'm not talking about the people sitting at this table
Okay,
right now.
what
I
about
promise.
actually a good one? How about Sam Hartman? Would that have been a good
No,
person
because
to draft?
you could draft Sam Hartman. I said Michael Pratt. Michael Pratt is like Bailey Zappi, right? Like it's going to be clear to everybody that Drake May is more physically talented than Michael Pratt. The problem that I
And it
have,
won't be clear that he's physically better than
not
Joe
to the
Milton?
casuals, no.
But
it's like Malik Cunningham. Malik Cunningham ran like the wind, and we heard 3 straight months of put in Malik, put in Malik.
I'm not worried about people in this building not realizing that Drake May is better than Joe Milton. I'm worried about people that don't have the football knowledge that Gerard Mayo has, looking at it and saying, this guy can throw it 75 yards and that guy can throw it 75 yards. What's the difference?
and you think that's going to affect Drake May?
No, I hope not.
But that's all we care
Yeah,
about.
that's
I
all
hope
we're
not.
saying right now.
If
It
it
did
doesn't-
affect the last quarterback.
If it doesn't, who cares what the fans are saying?
Yeah, I don't
as long
care.
as in that room.
when the Patriots drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, it affected that guy, and yeah, he used it as motivation. But
that's what
not
America
everybody
does.
is wired that way.
Well, then you shouldn't
especially
be in the NFL.
A 21-year-old
Especially
kid who's
these
never been out of
kids.
well, then we picked the wrong guy
Yeah.
at 3.
everybody. All the
at one
so
whatever.
many of these kids are like that now, though. That's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Like that's this generation. Like
Baby.
that's what it is. Like a lot of in all sports, they're the man. This is my territory. And when you tell me differently, a lot of these guys pout. That's just the way it is.
Well, I mean, right now, it's not his territory. He's going to have to earn this job by what he does on the field. And
I hope
if
his
it's not
territory.
apparent, and again, the subtleties are going to be lost on the casual fan. I agree with that, right? But we're hoping that this is a competent coaching staff, and they will realize the difference between Drake May and Joe Milton.
There's
The coaches, I
huge
have no
difference,
doubt,
yeah.
are going to recognize that.
Well, and Drake May will understand that he's doing things better than Joe Milton.
For sure.
Totally.
He
And-
should
and-
know that
and-
he's
and then-
exceedingly better than, than
and then
him.
that's it.
I'm not honestly. I'm not even that worried about the football of it all. It's honestly just I don't want to deal with 4 months
Oh,
of
you
Joe
don't
Milton
have to-
calls
so what?
like we had with Malik Cunningham, and I'm like I can't even
I
talk
could
to you
care-
guys right now.
I think that's fun.
Yeah.
Who cares?
That's just
Let them say what
Like
they say.
literally,
Oh, God.
I never once wanted Malik to start over Mac.
No
last
one-
year. I
no one-
preferred Bailey to go out there.
No one
versus
actually
Malik.
did that.
No, but
because
there were plenty of people. How much did we talk about Malik Cunningham on this
every
show? I'm not
or
saying any
every
of
single
us were
time I
doing
wrote
it.
about Malik Cunningham and the post would blow up for no reason. Like, oh, they elevated him from the practice squad. He didn't even play in the game, but they elevated him and everybody read about it. Like, it's just, I understand that it's all not going to matter. And 6 months from now, we're going to really remember when we argued for 30 minutes about Joe Milton and Drake May and all this stuff? I get all that. I just am telling you that there are people outside this room that cover this team that are not going to know the difference between the two guys. And that is concerning to me.
But I mean, how many? I don't know why you're so wrapped up about what fans understand and what they don't. It's up to
Because
you.
it
It's not-
creates-
That's
'cause-
why you're here.
Because
Eric.
it
I just thought that
because
they
it-
try to do the best
because
they
it
could
creates
to help it
bad
out.
outside noise. It just creates the outside noise, and we just watched it happen with Mac Jones.
But I don't think there's anything you can do about that. There's always going to be someone that the fans are clamoring for, whether it's Malik Cunningham or Michael Bishop or whoever. It's the the next shiny little toy. I remember when Michael Bishop, who was the receiver from Brown, that was.
Oh God, yeah.
What was Sean Moore? Oh, Sean Moore is going to be the next big thing. It's like, come on.
Well, I think, too, part of it, you want to be excited about Drake May, and you don't all of a sudden want to have two camps that are going to emerge of, the Team Milton who
just see it now. Day one of Patriots mini camp here in June, and Joe Milton threw the ball better than Drake May. I'm telling you, Mike. Like, I just can see it now.
Put him in. I don't know. What's the problem? May's struggling, Mike.
Great. It will happen. I'm sure that will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well. I mean, now they got something else to figure out how to manage too. With just we talk about when will May get in there. I mean, it's just another body in there. I mean, I do.
Well,
think
right
Bailey
now
Zappi's
there's
on.
5 receivers, right?
Yeah, I think it affects Bailey Zappi probably more than anybody because I thought it seemed like Bailey
Zappi
Zappi
he might get traded based on some of the rumors. Like Rap Sheet said after they took Joe Milton that they've been trying to shop Bailey Zappi and he's available in a trade.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Can I just throw one last thing out here?
Yes, Paul.
So if let's just say disaster strikes, and this negatively impacts Drake May, and you stuck without a quarterback.
So May is playing, but he's not playing well.
And the mentality is like Mac. Well, they didn't do anything to support him, and they failed him. They ruined him. And that's the narrative. Say this time in 2 years, they ruined him. We're not allowed to say that
by drafting Joe Milton.
We're not allowed to. Yeah, we're not allowed to say it though.
Well, I think that would be incorrect. But
you didn't see it. So wait.
No, but if
this is a hypothetical.
If that's what ruined him, then
this is a complete hypothetical. How
no,
can
I
you
know
say it's incorrect.
I know, but I'm sure in 3 years, if Drake May is a bust, there's going to be more reasons than they drafted Joe Milton.
Right. Were there more reasons Mac Jones was a bust other than they hired Matt Patricia for the offensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Is that the reason why people think that they ruined him? Yeah.
That's one of the reasons.
Yeah. But you're not allowed to say that.
That's a lot different than drafting Joe Milton.
Just as long as I don't hear you say it.
No, it's not even apples to apples.
So don't ever say it then.
No, it's not even a fair comparison.
So don't say it. Don't change your mind.
Okay, I won't. I probably won't.
No one's allowed to say that.
Okay,
we broke all the rules here.
Paul, you're allowed.
We disagree with the Patriots move.
You're allowed
I
to.
Broke the rules.
You're allowed to say whatever you want.
Nope.
And everyone's allowed to.
If I do that, I'm just being a baby. So I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. When you start saying, "Well, I can't say what I," when you act
can't.
like a baby,
obviously you can't.
You're a baby.
Right.
I mean,
when you have to pander, you can't say what you want to say.
Why am I pandering?
I will pander.
What's pandering? By saying my opinion, I'm pandering?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I will check it at the door next time.
Okay.
I'll be all on board.
Baby.
Patriots filtered from now on.
Okay. Paul, you don't have to filter it, but you have to be a big boy when someone pushes back. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
All right.
You're the arbiter of justice.
Yes, I am. It's my show.
855-PATS-500
is the ticket hotline. Web radio at patriots.com is the email address.
Totally pathetic.
Oh, he just won't stop. He just won't stop.
Joe Milton.
Yeah, Joe Milton.
Who would have thought
Joe
Milton was going to get
up
us
his
Who would have thought you couldn't have an opinion on draft picks? I thought that we were supposed to give that.
Well,
I was wrong.
Why can't you give your opinion?
Because I'm mocked for it. All you did was laugh.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah, you did.
All right.
Call me names.
I disagree.
Mocking.
Yeah,
mocking.
not because of your opinion.
Well, that's the way I took it.
Well,
I dissented.
I'm sorry, Paul.
I had the audacity to not agree.
Yeah. And
sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
I won't let it happen again.
This is what you're being mocked for, Paul. This attitude. You can have a different opinion, but
it's not the way I see it.
When someone disagrees with you, then
again, I don't see it the way you do, so I'm automatically wrong. I don't see it that way.
You're not wrong. No one's wrong. It's just I don't know why you have to act that way. Everyone's attacking you.
I don't feel like I'm acting anyway.
Okay. All right.
But I don't agree with you, so it's not the same way. It's the way you see it. It has to be the way we see it, or I see it. I shouldn't put.
Well, I don't understand why two people can't have different opinions.
I don't either.
You know, So as soon as I push back, you act like a baby. That's what I'm saying.
Not for pushing back. It's for the mocking, the laughing. Like, how could you even think that?
Well, so what? So what? I mean, you know.
Believe me, I told you, I will try to just conform.
Okay. All
From
right.
now on, I'll try not to have my thoughts aired.
Okay.
So what about Kid Wallace?
Yeah.
What do we
Well,
think
I
of
was
him?
going to move on to Christian Barmore because, you know, I think we might be all in agreement that was a good move by the Patriots.
It was a good move for the Patriots.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, long needed, and, you know, Duggar, him, Onwenu, Jennings, multiple
Now, I was a little surprised, and, you know, that only about half of it was guaranteed because in today's day and age, like a lot of these deals, like 75% are being guaranteed. But I think it's a good lesson when you have a guy like that, do it early as you can. Do it a year early. Don't wait. You know, get that thing done.
That's the whole thing. I mean, why wasn't Duggar done last year? You know, it's the same kind of
Different
thing.
guy in
you
Yeah,
know?
we know that. We
Yeah.
know why.
I think to me it's two different ways, and I always feel like I come across, I don't want to speak for you guys, like it's always Bill's Ray was always wrong, which might not be the case, right? Or it wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
But Bill would have drafted Christian Barmore's replacement this year. He would have used a premium pick on a defensive tackle, and he would have said, in a year from now, he's going to train under Christian Barmore for a year, and in a year from now, we're going to let Barmore walk for the 3rd round comp pick, and this guy's going to take his place, and we're not going to miss a beat. And he would have done the same thing. He did the same thing. He drafted Marty Mapu to replace Kyle Duggar. He did the same thing with Kyle Duggar. And I think the bigger thing that you see with that is, one, it's not the next player is not always as good, which is, I think, the situation they got into the last couple of years. And two, then you don't use that asset on other holes. So now you're drafting a defensive tackle in the 2nd round, and you're not drafting Jalen Polk. So it just has a domino effect. Now, in the long run, about the individual player, maybe Bill would have ended up being right. Maybe Kyle Duggar, this is as good as he's going to get, and maybe, you know, the contract in a year from now is going to look terrible, and Bill would have been right in terms of the individual player, but it's all, you know, there's a lot more of a web there than just what effect it has on that one player. Last year, they drafted everybody as replacements. That's what they did.
And you can't just do that that's just, you fall out of the cycle. You only have maybe 9 to 10 draft picks a year. You can't just continue, to recycle things. And that's the problem. There weren't enough of those guys. There weren't enough extensions. They got, they lost their way, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And then it seemed like they just started running this, like, we'll just replace him on defense kind of thing. So I think it's a good move for Barmore. I mean, 4 years extension. He's here for a while. I mean, I still think, not to get ahead of ourselves, but defense is going to need to be rebuilt next year.
I mean, everyone's assuming that the defense is going to be just pick up where it left off last year.
Well, I mean, this year maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, this year maybe. I mean, they'll get some guys back, and I mean, but next year it's Godchaw, Wise, Bentley. All those guys are out next year, so they're.
Yeah.
It was good to get Barmore, so you have one piece up front that's
I also like
stable.
that when you exert this much energy and you promote, draft and develop guys, it's like you exert that much energy developing Barmore into what he is today. Like, why would you let him walk out the door and let someone else profit off of that?
That's such a hard thing too, with like guys like Tooney. Just guys that you drafted, you developed. They're good players, and it's
he would have done the same thing with Mike Onwenu. Like, they drafted City So to replace Mike Onwenu.
Yeah, they just never drafted anybody to replace Gronk or Edelman.
Well,
and that's
well, they tried. They just drafted bad players.
And plus, when you compare the drafts when Brady was here to drafts that, it's not a fair comparison, because you could take chances with Brady and screw up and you'd still win 12 games, and so you didn't notice it as much. Plus, you had a foundation of good players. I think now the foundation is Barmore. Hopefully the foundation is Duggar, and guys like that. And you need to keep those guys. Where in the past, maybe you didn't have to do that. And maybe you drafted guys that were replacements so that you could keep that salary down and spend it on Tom Brady or whatever. But it's not fair to compare the post-Brady drafts to drafts that you had with Brady.
Yeah.
I agree, because there's a talent level that you didn't necessarily need to have when Brady was here.
Right.
Now, I love the Barmore re-signing, and I'm not necessarily sure that it's not one that Bill would have made. It's like Michael Wenyu, they wouldn't have done that. Well, they just did it with Jack Mason 5 years ago. Like, they drafted a guard that really hit, and they gave him a big-time extension. Now, they pulled the plug in the middle of the extension, but that's different. Like, they did give him a second contract. And I think there are other guys that he feels like I think we have no way of knowing this, but I think he may have felt Barmore was different because Barmore was special, as opposed to maybe to Evan's point about Duggar and Mapu. Maybe he just feels like Duggar's just another guy, and maybe he wouldn't have gotten that.
Could be.
You know what I mean?
I'd listen to that argument.
You know, and we have no way of knowing for sure
Yeah.
because Bill's not here anymore, obviously. But I think he might have treated Barmore a little bit.
I do too. I mean,
I don't think he broke the bank either. I think that was a really team-friendly deal.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good point, Paul. That's what I mean. That's been the hard thing is like I don't really necessarily. I mean, there was a time last year when I was saying like Onwenu. I mean, he's good, but I mean, Duggar, he's good, but Barmore, you're right. Like maybe he would feel.
And I think the state of the offensive line would have led to a Onwenu extension because I feel like he might have looked at it and said,
we got to
I got to have somebody to anchor this thing. David Andrews is going to be around forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just want to let everyone know, coming up at around 1 o'clock, we're going to be joined by Field Yates from ESPN. Obviously, he was nonstop on ESPN on TV over the weekend with draft, and he's dived as deep into the draft as anyone over there. So we'll get his opinion. He's got his New England roots.
We talked to him at the Combine.
Yeah. Always
Sat down.
interested to see what the Patriots are doing and hear from him from his perspective. So we'll do that around 1 o'clock or so.
Cool.
So that'll be fun. You guys have your questions ready for him?
Yes, I got it.
I have one question for him.
You do?
I have nothing.
Yeah. How did you get in the business?
No,
Oh, okay.
we've talked about that before, though.
Okay. All right.
Can we get Mina Kimes?
I've tried to get Mina Kimes. She's a tough get.
Is that right?
She's a busy gal.
Mina Kimes would be
Not for Taylor
dope.
Kyles.
That's true. That's true.
Ooh.
And I hold that against her. I do.
Maybe you need to work on your DM game.
I don't think Jess would like that. I think a DM game being bad is a good thing.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So that's good news. Christian Barmore locked up. Now, I think in terms of like his potential, and you compare it to Duggar, Barmore's special. I think.
Yeah.
Duggar's good, but I think Barmore's special. I hope that now that he's got his bag, that he keeps up that energy that he's shown the last couple of years.
He doesn't know any other way, Fred. I mean,
Yeah.
you just talk to him, just standing in his locker, and he's just
Yeah.
he can't. He's got to move. He is just that kind of guy. So
He seems to really love football too. I've had a lot of conversations with him about like real football minutia type of stuff, and he's a craftsman. Like he works on it. Like you can tell, and I think he really, really likes DeMarcus Covington a lot.
Yeah. So whatever the knock on him coming out of Alabama was, it seems that's gone away.
oh boy,
Yeah.
remember Warren Sapp? Warren Sapp had a whole thing of like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't draft this guy with a 10-foot pole. If
Yeah.
that makes sense, but yeah.
I think defensively, I was looking around at some of the other depth charts on our lads and things like that. And honestly, if Christian Gonzalez is as good as he was for the month that he was healthy last year, the Patriots defense is as good as anybody on paper, just in terms of how deep they are. And
You really think so?
Yeah, I really think so. Yeah. I mean, they have, assuming Judon comes back and is on this team, Judon, Barmore, Gonzalez are potentially 3 Pro Bowl caliber players.
And are you factoring in the loss of one Bill Belichick?
Maybe not as much as you, but yeah, I mean, like obviously that's going to have a game plan impact on them. I'm more talking about from like a talent personnel standpoint.
Yeah.
Because they still have a lot of like those lunch pail Belichick guys to supplement the star players. Tavai, Bentley, Dietrich Wise. Those types of guys too. So it's not just the high end talent. Like maybe other teams you could argue have a little bit more of that like. Elite blue chip talent. But if Barmore continues to ascend and Gonzalez is as good as he was last year when he was healthy, then I'd take the Patriots defense.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think it's, we did a video yesterday. Just some of the interesting stuff is like some of the positions they maybe didn't necessarily address. It kind of puts a spotlight a little bit on, like a Mapu, didn't draft a free safety type. We kind of talked about Kevin Harris on the offensive side of the ball, didn't really draft a running back. So, and I think Isaiah Bolden and this Marcellus Dial, I'm real interested to see them because I think we all, kind of feel like they could use another corner like in the mix.
Yeah.
And
them and Alex Austin to add those. If they can get an outside corner that can play some snaps out of those three guys, then they're in
what
good
was
shape.
Gonzalez's
Golden's
injury?
a guy to keep an eye on.
Wasn't it shoulder?
Shoulder. Okay.
Gonzalez,
Yeah.
torn labrum, shoulder.
Yeah. So as long as it wasn't those hips.
No, the hips don't lie.
The hips don't lie. No, and in all seriousness, the thing I loved about Gonzalez is, like Malcolm Butler was feisty. He was a competitor, and but Gonzalez is an athlete. Like he does it with talent.
Stephon Gilmore.
Like Stephon Gilmore,
Smooth.
or dare I say Ty Law. Like he stays with a guy because of his talent, not because of his feistiness. He's able to mirror a guy, and to me, I've always thought that's a rare skill in the NFL. Like to be able to be that kind of mirror corner in this league is it's a rare commodity. And when you get one of those guys, you don't let him go.
It's recovery too. I mean, I remember in those couple games, that's what stood out to me was just even when he was kind of taking a half false step, like he's good enough that he can recover from that stuff. So very excited. I mean, there's a lot to. I mean, Andy was saying that he's excited. I tweeted out, I'm like, geez, how things have changed. I mean, but I think he's right. There's some talent coming back, guys that were good. And then, I mean, you've got a whole bunch of new offensive pieces that it's going to be fun to just get out there, see what they look like, see what they move like. And I'm just excited to see what Joel Milton looks like, of course.
With Gonzo, his speed was different. I'm just going to gloss right over that. I'm just glossing right over that. His speed in a straight line, like I mean, he ran a 4.3, so it's obviously there. But he plays to the 4.3.
Just Dial?
No, Gonzalez.
Oh, Gonzalez.
Yeah, Dial though ran like in the mid 4.4s.
Okay.
And has some length and some ball skills. So he had 31 pass breakups in college, which is a pretty big number for a college corner. So there's some talent there in terms of finding the ball. Like they're a typical type of guy that can play man and find the football and do that kind of thing.
I'd say that's like a thing to watch for me. This summer is who can a third cornerback kind of emerge and. I still think
Pellegrino, our cornerback.
Yeah, he's still there, but I still think there's questions in the slot. I mean, can Marcus Jones stay healthy? Can he play the slot full time? I mean, so I definitely think. I mean, but as Evan pointed out on our little video shoot, maybe somebody like Gilmore or that kind of addition could still possibly happen now.
Yeah, if you get the third corner, if you have an outside corner that can play a lot, and let's call it 65% of the snaps that you feel really good about, and then you have Jonathan Jones more back inside to nickel, I think that's probably their best combination. Nothing against Marcus Jones, but I think that's probably their best combination is if Alex Austin, Isaiah Bolden, Dial, someone like that emerges as the Jason McCourty type.
Yeah.
And then that allows Jonathan Jones to kick.
It's just so intriguing to me.
I forgot about Isaiah Bolden.
I'd love to go back to when we were like a man team on defense, and not have to do zone.
Play like a man.
No, but the more you can put one-on-one coverage, the more it frees up your defense to do other things. And I'd love if Gilmore or someone of that ilk came in to
How much is he going to cost?
Not as much anymore.
I mean,
and
1 year?
Yeah, you lose the comp pick formula situation too. Not that matters for the Patriots, but it matters for a lot of teams. So that could maybe make it a little bit more money.
Was he being asked to be number one in Carolina?
When he got traded down there? Or Dallas?
When he got traded down
After Diggs got hurt, he was their number one.
Are you talking about Carolina or Dallas?
His last stop was Dallas?
Yes. Yeah.
So he wasn't the number one in Dallas.
No.
I know that. Yeah, okay. All right, well,
at this point, I would say that he's probably not going to sign until camp.
Yeah.
Because he would have signed initially if he got like maybe years and money, but now that he's not going to get that, he's probably like,
yeah.
I
don't need any of this spring crap. I'll see you in camp.
If he's looking for that 1 year reset coming back here where he knows the system and it's a pretty good defense around him and he knows Gerard, like I could see that him thinking, well, that's probably where I'm going to play my best football.
It's not Bill's off season anymore. It's Gerard's off season too.
My initial impression would be there's no chance.
Yeah.
But because of Gerard, I think there is a chance.
Yeah.
I think he would, depending on his relationship with Mayo, how he felt about Mayo, I do. I mean,
could see him doing it.
The bigger question,
as long as he's not going to get money, I just would think that he would rather go to a contender.
The bigger question, just for me, outside of specifically to Gilmore, is just what guys on the roster that are younger that haven't really gotten a chance yet, maybe like a Mapu, does this administration look at and see? We want to get this guy involved. We want, they've talked a lot about that, drafting guys, allowing the coaches to work with them, allowing them to play. So that's like Kevin Harris. Like, do they see him and say, man, if he wasn't behind Ezekiel Elliott last year, he could have really gotten a chance? I don't know. I mean, I don't really feel passionate about any of those guys. I mean, to be honest, I'm curious about Mapu though. I'm curious
Alex
about
Austin
Mapu.
is
What about Keon White? Like I feel like Keon White is one of those guys that you just drafted him in the second round. Like you should hope to think that we keep talking about edge rusher.
Year 2 jump.
Well, there's your edge rusher. If
Does
he
he kind of play in the guy role? Do they move him more to more hand down defensive end kind of thing and kind of quit it with the standing up, or is Armon Watson there and Keon White continues
That's
to kind
how I
of dabble?
think of him. I don't think of him as an edge rusher. I think of
yeah.
him as a guy down.
Yeah.
I think that's where he's been his best for sure.
Yeah.
But I wonder if he comes in a little lighter,
right?
And like you say to him, why don't you drop 10 pounds of whatever, and
you can sell me on it with the outside linebacker depth because there's really nobody. So if you want to come back and tell me Keon White's going to be a pure outside linebacker this year,
because I just don't think that he's like a block eating 3-4 end.
No.
I think that's what Bill wanted him to do last year. I mean, in camp, remember how many times he would be out there, and it just didn't seem like it.
Yeah.
I just think he's too small for that. Like I think that his strengths are obviously like his first step in his athleticism, and I think he's a little bit too clunky to play up on his feet. But if you had him lose some weight and maybe go about it a little bit differently, where it's like we're trying to thin you out a little bit, then maybe he could do it a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
All right, 855-PATS-500 is the Ace Ticket hotline. Web radio at patriots.com is the email address. Carrie's in New Hampshire. What's up, Carrie? Hey, Carrie.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
Okay.
Just wanted to tell you guys you've taught me most of what I know about football.
Oh, I'm sorry you don't know anything.
Long-time listener. But I do have to tell you, I don't normally listen live.
Okay.
But today, I just need to tell Paul and Fred to take a deep breath because we don't want to listen to that on this.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Too much arguing.
Too much arguing. Anyway, that being said, I'm excited about what's coming this year and continue to listen. You guys are the only ones I listen to, and thank you for teaching me everything that I know.
Okay. Well, what makes you excited before you go? Anything in particular? You said you're excited about this year.
I think just the change everywhere.
Okay.
From the top down.
Okay. New start, fresh start.
And they're not going to hit on every single one of these picks, and that I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Good, because they won't.
Let's just wait and see how it all.
All right.
Out.
Thanks, Carrie. Carrie, New Hampshire.
Thanks,
not
Carrie.
happy with the arguing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is an argument-free zone she wants.
No.
That's what we will get. Yes.
Mike in Billerica writes in, starting out by saying, I love this draft. Drake was my guy. I got to meet him in Detroit, and I'm thrilled we got him. My only issue is this felt like the same as always, albeit with more offense. We moved off the consensus guy of Mitchell. I know he has diabetes. He's a monster. Why can't he go drunk driving like – oh, come on. Then we reached on day 3 projected right tackle who we have to play out of position because of a hole we decided to not seriously fill at previous opportunities. I like Polk, and I really love Baker, and I hope Wallace takes the position change well, but this didn't seem like we drafted all too differently than when we had Bill. What am I missing?
Really? We drafted 2 receivers in all offense.
Like, literally, I feel like it would have been maybe 4 defensive players and 3 offense, or maybe 5 and 2.
I think like he's recognizing that we went offense, but I think the style is what he's talking about. Like
maybe, I guess I could hear that.
Totally agree with the emailer.
I don't know. I feel like when you draft 7 of 8 offensive players, that is something that hell would freeze over before Bill Belichick did that.
No, but it's not the fact that they did offense and Bill does defense. It's the quality or players that they could have had versus who they took.
But to you. Or to the emailer,
right.
I mean.
That's the point.
Yeah, and I rank these players as much as anybody, but like it's just my opinion, you know. And like when I see these draft grades and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, so you're going off of your pre-draft opinion of these players, which is all you can do. But what if you're wrong?
Yeah. Well, you got to remember we're drafting at the top of every round. for the most part, rather than
That was so nice.
middle or bottom.
I
So
enjoyed that
Yeah.
so
that changes
thoroughly.
who you have an opportunity to get. You know,
Also, I think for whatever reason we still haven't heard yet, but A.D. Mitchell, a lot of teams kept
a
passing.
lot of
over
people
him.
passed up on
So
him.
He fell.
it's like the Bills could have taken him.
Yeah.
The Chiefs could have taken him. Like
Yeah.
they didn't. So I think it's like clearly a reason that all those teams skipped him until
We'll
the Colts.
see, and he could end up being the best of the bunch.
He
You
could.
never know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Playing
Feels
alongside
very
Anthony
George
Richardson.
Pickensy
Then he'll be
to me.
hung over our head for all eternity. Could have had A.J. Brown. I know.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
that's my biggest fear about this draft is you really have. I take A.D. Mitchell out of it because he wasn't on their board. Like they passed on him multiple times. He wasn't there. Like he wasn't gonna be a Patriot. But Xavier Legette, Ladd McConkey, Troy Franklin,
What if they looked at
like
Ladd
those three
McConkey?
guys versus the two guys they actually did draft. That's gonna be 3 years from now. If Ladd, it's gonna be George Pickens, Tyquan Thornton all over again. Like
No.
Do you think they viewed Ladd McConkey though as too similar to Pop Douglas? Like
No, I mean maybe, but I think they're different, very different players. Like Ladd McConkey is a deep threat. Like he's a
or
vertical
they didn't
deep
want
threat.
two small guys.
I think it was more about the size and the play strength, than necessarily stylistically. But Ladd McConkey is 186 pounds.
That's one of my
Jalen
favorite
Polk's
things
205
about
pounds. That's a
Polk
big
and Baker
difference.
are both like 6'1" and change and over 200 pounds. I mean, they're both pretty thick dudes that can
Is
take a
how
pounding.
much does Pop weigh?
Like 180 pounds.
Really?
Soaking wet.
Yeah.
Similar to
You
Ladd?
did that one on
Yeah,
purpose.
less. I think even
You're
less
bad.
maybe.
Yeah, Pop's small too.
Yeah, Pop's short
Yeah.
and
But it's a good compliment to the other two guys. Like
Yeah,
you
I
talked
think
about
that's one
inside,
thing
you got an
that
outside, an
we're-
inside outside, and an inside guy.
That's one thing I've thought about is just talking about these receivers and stuff like that. Everybody's like, well, they don't have anybody with any real speed. Well, they have Pop Douglas. Like Pop Douglas is a fast guy. Like even down the field, he's a fast guy. I mean, we saw it last year that he's got legit game speed. So I know everybody's, well, maybe this is finally Tyquan Thornton's chance. Like, no.
No,
that's
and to that
This
point,
is-
Evan, I
this is
think
Pop's
that's
chance.
That's
can Javon Baker get off the line?
Yeah.
Like that's a big question for me. How does he look against going up against Gonzalez in practice when we see
Oh,
these
God.
guys like
Gonzalez
you
can have
know,
him a straight jacket.
When he
That's not a
finally-
fair match.
When Drake May finally becomes the starting quarterback, who will be his binky out of this group?
Jalen Polk.
Yeah, Jalen Polk. I mean, and I think
would
Pop
think.
Pop would have a level of that too. I would hope. Just with his
You
with
know
his
your
quickness.
Bill thing about not signing guys? Demario Douglas is a guy that Bill wouldn't give a second contract.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like
No.
I
Six
I-
rounder.
I
They're
create-
everywhere.
I created
Yeah.
him. Now someone's going to overpay him, quote unquote.
you know-
overpay him.
It's
And
like,
We got the best years out of him.
Sorry,
They'll
go
let him
ahead.
go.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, like, why do after you pour so much into that and he becomes good?
Right,
Why
and-
would you let him walk?
and
Because he'll think that the first 4 years will be the best 4 years of his career, and he's going to go down.
Yeah, he'll start
At that
getting hurt
size,
and
that
stuff.
skill set.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
they
he
let
was hurt-
they
he
let
was hurt
Edelman
constantly
walk.
last year.
Right, they let Edelman walk
Right,
if he wanted
and no
to.
one wanted him.
Right.
That's a big concern about Pop is the concussions that have already added up
True.
and the injuries and all that kind of stuff. But if he doesn't have to be a high volume guy, like last year they were trying to feed him the ball because he's the best player on the
he
field.
He got a stretch there where he was getting a ton of targets.
Right.
All right, we'll take a break from this conversation because joining us now is Field Yates of ESPN. Field, can you hear me?
I can hear you okay. What's going on?
How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Exciting times right now in New England.
Good
Phil,
seeing
you
you.
have a lot of rich mahogany behind you.
Yeah, I borrowed it. I took it off of Reese's paycheck. That's how I paid for it.
Yeah, I know how that works.
Field, it's good talking with you. Of course, you've got your New England roots, and but now you're covering the league as a whole. But I'm sure that you always have a keen eye as to what the Patriots are doing. What was your opinion of how draft weekend turned out for the Patriots?
Yeah, I think this has the weekend. This is the potential to be the weekend, and I know this is what everybody says about every draft. But the potential to be the weekend to set the course for the Patriots' future. Drake May, and I said this from the moment that the draft order was set for the non-playoff teams, that there was no such thing as a consolation prize amongst the top three quarterbacks. The 3 months between the end of the regular season and the start of the NFL draft were going to determine who went 1, 2, and 3, but I really felt strongly that all three of them merited top 3 pick consideration. And depending on the year, any of them could have easily been the number 1 player in the entire draft. So the fact that the Patriots stood at number 3 resisted the temptation to move back. And I understand that temptation. There's evidence that suggests that having a ton of extra draft capital can be very, very valuable. But there's nothing more important in roster building in football than having a quarterback who can make everything else go. And the Patriots now have that in Drake May, and they used 6 of their subsequent 7 picks on offense, which was a sign that, hey, we have the quarterback in place, but it doesn't matter if you're if you're a rookie quarterback or if you're at the very top of the food chain like Patrick Mahomes right now for the Chiefs. We're going to continue to invest in you because it's still the ultimate team sport, and we have a lot of work to do to help get Drake May to where we believe he can get to.
Are you in the sit him for a while, or are you in the camp of he needs to get right out there?
Yeah, I'm okay with sitting Drake May for a little while here, and maybe I'm a little bit too old school for the modern era of the NFL, but I believe that one of the reasons in which we see young quarterbacks play so often is that there's pressure for these GMs and head coaches. That they understand that, they only have so much of a leash to work with here. We see so much turnover in those positions around the NFL. I don't think that's the case here with the Patriots, though. Obviously, with Gerard Mayo and Elliott Wolf both in their first years in their respective positions, this does align as an opportunity for a team to say, if the quarterback isn't ready, or if they feel like playing Drake May right out of the chutes can do equally as much bad as it can good, then maybe it's a chance for Jacoby Brissett to start some number of games to begin the season. 1, 2, 10, 17. I don't know the answer to be specific, but I'm an advocate for it if the player is not fully ready. It's going to be really hard if Drake May does some of the stuff that I anticipate he'll do. I know you guys have all watched him endlessly right now.
Yep.
But wait till first Patriots training camp practice is open to the public, because the fans are going to see up close and personal what kind of a special player this is. And you're going to have moments during training camp. They're going to make you say, wow.
Now, you're talking about Joe Milton, right? I'm only kidding.
Well, him too. Joe will definitely wow
coming.
you, that's for sure. But, Drake's going to have enough moments that are going to wow you, that people are going to say, how can we not play this kid right away? That being said, I do think there is something to be learned in a young quarterback's trajectory from seeing it from sideline view for a little bit. I'm not talking about 3 years here. I'm talking about maybe 3 games.
Yeah.
That might be what it takes for the Patriots to feel like Drake May is more ready.
Yep.
Phil, we talked to you. Thanks for talking to us at the Combine. And we talked Elliott Wolf saying Patriots got to weaponize their offense. What did you think of the 2 picks there, Polk and Baker?
Yeah, if anybody here listens to the first draft show, thank you, first of all. But second of all, you'll know that Mel and I try to do our best to not spend all day talking about just the guys that will go at the very top of the draft. And we did our favorites list. It's our players that could go not in round 1, or most likely not in round 1, that we just loved and loved studying them, loved something about their game, loved everything about their game. And the captain of my team was Jalen Polk. I felt strongly about this player throughout the process. I feel as though in a really, really deep wide receiver class, he might have been the most underappreciated of all of them. Jalen Polk is a dog. I know that's kind of a cliche, but this kid is so tough. He's got vice grip hands. The analogy that I continue to use is he is a low post player in the NBA 25 years ago. Not a lot of flash, not a lot of substance. He just gets buckets. He just consistently moves the chains. And we talk about great hands in football. And we think about highlight reel catches, right? The Odell Beckham Jr. catch with 2 fingertips. And those are great. Those are remarkable. I'm not trying to take away from the merits of those. I think about great hands. And I think about, and you guys have all followed this team long enough to know there's some great players that have come through this Patriots franchise for a long time. Guys who just consistently made clutch. Troy Brown, great example there, right? Like, Troy just made catches reliably.
Yeah.
If Tom put the ball in his back hip, he made the catch. It wasn't necessarily these catches that get you on the SportsCenter top 10, but rather just clutch production plays. And I thought Jalen Polk just made catches consistently. Really good body control as well. One of my favorite players, truly one of my favorite players in the entire class.
You talk about guys like Troy Brown and Edelman and Welker, guys that just move the chain consistently. I felt all those guys had very, very high football IQs. Yeah. Do you have any indication of Polk's IQ when it comes to football?
Yeah, the IQ and the character are A+. I mean, outstanding. That's part of the consideration when you're sitting there at 37. I know they were 34 before they moved back, is that the board was kind of wide open there, right? You had a bunch of different wide receivers that could have merited consideration right there, and they ended up adding some extra draft capital and then taking Jalen Polk. I believe, was it the fourth that they got in the deal that they used on
Javon Baker?
Used on Javon Baker as well?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
110.
Yeah, I have to. 257 picks. Some of it's still a blur to me.
Yeah.
I know they gave the fifth to LA and picked up the fourth, so that was where they got Javon Baker. But that 37th pick, like, there are some real good candidates to take besides Jalen Polk.
Yeah.
The 37 was a sign of not just the skill set physically, but also the mentality, the IQ, the person, the character. You have a young quarterback now in Drake May, and you want to make sure that you support him with the right people. We think about that if the coach, the offensive coordinator, the position coach that he'll be working with, you name it. But some of it's the people as well on the roster. What kind of guys do you want to have around your young quarterback that are going to help elevate him in the same way that he can help elevate them? And I feel like Jalen Polk is like that. I had a chance. I loved him throughout the process. I went to the Washington Pro Day, got a chance to see him up close and personal. And him and Rome Odunze, who of course went 9th to the Bears, like, those are truly special young men as well. The kind of guys that the minute they walk into a room, they kind of change the chemistry of it. So that was a big ad for the Patriots. I saw the people. There was some belly aching. Apparently, Jalen Polk went too high according to various boards. I had him 42nd on my board, and I don't know. I had 400 players graded. So 42 for me was right in line with about where he went, and I thought this kid was an absolute stud. So I was great with that pick. Javon Baker was a value based off my board. He was, I believe, 72nd on my board. So that's a good value there in the 4th round. But again, this is in some ways it's just, what are we doing to empower our young quarterback? And we're using 6 of our final 8 selections, or 6 of our final 7 on offensive pieces. Maybe you want to call it 5 out of 7 because one of them was also a quarterback. But the point is, the Patriots went offense heavy throughout this draft. And while there's still work to do, it's a good step forward to help Drake May feel like, hey, this team's trying to surround me with the right pieces.
Yep. Tamara?
Hi.
Hi, Tamara.
Hi. What was your opinion of the Patriots double dipping at quarterback, and what do you think of the pick overall?
Joe was one of the most fascinating players, regardless of position, in the entire class. I had so many conversations with people during the process saying, where do you think Joe Milton will go? And nobody could quite pinpoint what the exact round or pick would be for Joe, because some of it with Joe during the evaluation is you saw what you wanted to see. But if you took a big step back and just took all the various exposures and try to condense them down into one single vision, what I saw was a player who, if coached up correctly and not rushed into action, has a chance to develop into something in the NFL. What does that something mean? I don't know specifically. Becoming a starting quarterback after being taken in the, was it 6th round, 5th round? Again, I'm sorry if I...
6th round. Yep.
6th round. Patriots fans probably would disagree with this, but that's hard to do, right? I mean, Tom Brady was 1 of 1 in so many ways.
He's 192, too high.
Yeah, all right, there you go. So 192, yeah. No one becomes a starter from 192. It's only that 199 spot that matters. But Joe, the Patriots, and maybe this is the Elliott Wolf factor. I don't know exactly why. Well, who is the most responsible for wanting? I guess every pick is Elliott's most responsible for, but I don't know which voices in the room were also arguing for the support of Joe Milton. But they want to be a quarterback factory. You want to have an arm in the pipeline every single year, and I feel like it's good business to be drafted one almost every single year. We've seen teams that have done so, and you're not going to hit on all of them, but if you hit on 1 or 2 of them every 5 or 8 or 10 years. It's great business. It's going to help you out. So Joe's so fascinating. He's an awesome kid. He's a great dude. He's had to pay his dues, Joe has. Has not been easy. I mean, he came to Michigan with a ton of fanfare and a lot of potential, 4-star recruit. He had to wait. He basically had 1 year as a starting quarterback at the college level, 1 full season. But, I mean, as we all know, massive arm, the most effortless arm I've seen in person at the college ranks for quite some time. He's a good athlete, too. Had an 80-plus yard touchdown run last year. There's something to work with Joe. It's a project, but, in the 6th round, those are the kind of sort of swing for the fences type of picks that I think are worthwhile.
Some on this show feel like by getting a guy like Joe Milton, who has such unique talents, but you're creating maybe unnecessary noise for a 1st-round pick who also you need to develop. What do you think about that?
I don't think in the 6th round you're doing that. That's my opinion. I understand that thought and sentiment. I've seen it. I didn't interpret it that way personally. And part of that I think is probably like knowing the character of Drake a little bit. Had a chance to spend actually most of, well, at least until the third pick, the evening prior to the draft, right around the May family, and competition's in the blood of Drake May. I mean, all 3 of his brothers were there, and you could just see it, right? Like you could see the competitive fire. The 4 of them were kind of horsing around before the draft, having a blast, like getting ready for this special moment. And I don't think Drake is going to be bothered by the presence of somebody, right? He forever has had to kind of scratch and crawl and claw to become, kind of the person he is today, because he had 3 older brothers who were all star athletes. I mean, 3 who played Division I sports, national champions in basketball and baseball and, big programs. So I'd be surprised if this created like this inherent, sort of uncertainty for Drake. I feel like he'll be cool with it. I don't know that for a fact. I would guess that though. But I was more fine with that. If it's a 3rd round pick, then we got a problem. Here, But the 6th round, 192, like at some point there are only so many players left to take. So I thought that was a reasonable way to approach that pick.
Bill Belichick was obviously on with Pat McAfee on ESPN during the draft, and they showed a draft board. It seemed to be team needs that were behind him, and some people thought that maybe it was, weren't sure if those were actually Bill's needs for teams or if like you guys had handed it. I'm not sure if you knew, who was the one that was constructing that board, but it was just interesting, to see what he thought of the Patriots roster, obviously after he was just the coach here not too long ago.
Yeah, I think those were, so that was my board that you saw. They're my top 50 and such. Are you asking about the cornerback thing specifically, Evan?
Yeah. Well, it's just obviously, weird to see cornerback up there compared to, receiver or something like that. But I was just wondering if, did Bill have a hand in those needs? Because I'm interested, about his thoughts on the roster that he just coached, obviously.
Yeah, I'm almost positive, and I'll pull the file up right now. I did not have cornerback on my Patriots need list. No, I did not. So, I think Bill had some influence there of how the needs were conveyed, because I just pulled it up and I did not have. I had, believe it or not, quarterback, wide receiver, tackle. So those were my needs for the Patriots. So I don't know, but so if you're asking like how could cornerback be a need for the Patriots, the question might be, you have one potential megastar in Gonzo. You have another solid starter in Jonathan Jones. Obviously, you have Marcus Jones hoping for great things and a bounce back year this year. Do you need more size in that cornerback room? Which, by the way, they got Marcellus Dial, who he had been mentioned on the First Draft podcast as a value pick about 10 days prior to the draft beginning. So I was a fan of the player there. But I personally felt like, the needs were stronger, across the offensive line. I mean, across the offensive board, pretty much, wide receiver, offensive tackle, quarterback, and any kind of supplementary offensive line investments.
Yep.
Field, in your dealings with the various personnel guys, I'm just wondering if there was a consensus about Jaden Daniels and Drake May. I know you started off.
I did not get that.
Did you feel like there were anybody that felt May was better than Daniels? Like that's kind of that's kind of how we felt here. Going in, and I don't know if we convinced ourselves, sort of knowing that we had the 3rd pick, but I like a lot about what Drake May does over Jaden Daniels. I'm just curious what some of the executives might have thought that you spoke to.
Yeah, it leaned towards Jaden versus Drake, but everybody also has a little bit of a different perspective on this. I would say the most popular refrain when assessing the case for Drake over Jaden is that the long-term potential and upside to Raider. And I, by the way, see a plausible case for that. I had Jaden as quarterback 2 and Drake as quarterback 3. But, guys, we're splitting hairs here, obviously. But the physical skill set and the upside that Drake brings to the table is ridiculous. You just don't find guys with that kind of size, that kind of in-pocket mobility, that kind of out-of-pocket mobility, the ability to manipulate the defenders with his eyes down the field. The arm strength is great, obviously. The character is, off the charts great. The age, I think, is a factor as well. Durability. And if you're looking at it through the New England lens, right, you need a guy who's built for the weather. I don't know exactly, but it feels like the Patriots over the past couple of years have been absolutely, I mean, like, especially in the winter, it's just been terrible weather, game after game after game. And, I mean, there were games in which, was it the Jets game last year where it was like, what, I don't know, like 5 completions in the first 2 quarters or something ridiculous. You got to have a guy that has a rocket arm. You just do. Big hands, rocket arm, can, take on, the weather and then take on some hits as well. So, to me, Drake May had an easy case to be quarterback 2 in this class. I'd say more than anything, though, that the line that I used earlier was the most important one in my eyes, which is that there is no consolation prize of those 3. It's really a matter of how each of those 3 teams develop them, because as we know in the NFL, quarterbacks obviously don't always live up to expectations, but sometimes the teams fail the player as well.
Yep. All right, Field, I really appreciate you joining us. It was great to hear and talk with you. So where can we get more of you on ESPN? What's on the map for 2024 for you?
Gosh, I hope nothing for a while here, but we'll see. No, I'm kidding on that. We'll just keep rocking and rolling. First draft is wrapped up for the season, so we had a blast there. And fantasy football season, I started my rankings this morning, so we're rocking and rolling. And then I had my first 12 players for 2025 NFL draft up here on my grease board right here too. So we're going to keep ranking away one way or the other.
All right. Field Yates.
Hopefully the Patriots have no shot at any of those 12.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Field, are you a Kelvin Bankser or a Will Campbell guy?
Say that one more time, Evan.
Are you a Kelvin Bankser or a Will Campbell guy?
I'm a little biased because I spent the past week in Detroit, and heard everybody's talking about Will Campbell. But I mean, these are breaking that tie will be a fun problem for the next 11 and a half months to debate. But I tell you what. Will Campbell had a great chance to catch up with Wink Martindale, who's now the DC at Michigan. And to say that he's fired up about Will Campbell would be the understatement of the year.
Yeah. All right. Field Yates, thank you so much. We're going to take a break on Patriots Unfiltered. Paul's Foods here. We'll be right back. If you want to see Toyota's best offers and have a first look at that, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go to the DraftKings commercial. Whether you're in the game or betting on the game, you'll need a game plan. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the New England Patriots, provides you with everything you need to build your personal betting game plan so you can get in on all the action while practicing safe bets. Visit DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming to learn more about all the safe betting tools DraftKings has to offer. Hope is here, 800-327-5050 or gamblinghelplinema.org. Must be 21 plus. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com. Physically present in Massachusetts. See DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources.
Isn't it time to get exactly what you want? Welcome to Red Hot Deal Days from Verizon, where you get your pick of our best deals. Like My Plan, where you can pick the perks you want and save on every one. For limited time, bring your own phones to a Verizon store and you can get My Plan for our best price ever. Get exactly what you want in your phone plan and only pay for what you need. Bring your phones to your Verizon store today and get My Plan. These deals won't last. It's your Verizon.
What's going on with Brian Hoyer these days?
I mean, I don't know. I think it would take a great opportunity to come along for me to do that. Obviously, I was in Las Vegas last year. I know I can still play because I beat the Patriots last year. One of the most
touche.
One of the most
That's on my list, Brian.
One of the
That's
most
on my
bittersweet moments of my career. So we'll talk about that later. But so I know I can still physically do it. But at 38 years old, my kids are getting older. I think it would take a really great opportunity for me, to come along for me to kind of look and see. But so I know I can still do it. Body feels relatively healthy, and so we'll see. It's always open. People always say, if someone's offering you an opportunity to play and you feel like you could do it, I remember a former teammate saying, "Play till they tell you can't." So definitely capable of it. It's just got to be, I think, the right opportunity at this point.
Idiots like us sit there and he can play or it's time to go and everything like that. But I don't think the lay people realize what's it like to make that decision as a family.
Yeah.
When you have a wife who's supported you cross-country trips, taking kids back and forth, at some point in time, her decision or her opinion, while always valued, you got to really listen to. That's got to be hard, like as a family standpoint. Like At what point in time do I need to devote my time to them?
Right, and that's a huge part of the decision making. So that's why I say like it'd have to be the right opportunity and all those things because, deciding to go to play in Las Vegas last year, it was not an easy choice. It was an easy choice because it was Josh and my relationship with him, but it wasn't an easy choice in the regards of what does this mean for my family? And thankfully we had a great school here that allowed our kids to kind of virtual school with the help of a tutor out there. But it was rough. It was a rough transition, and they were all happy to come back once the season was over. And so now my son, he's going into 7th grade. He got accepted as a Zavarian brother. So, those are all things that you have to take into account. Like I want to watch him play football. Of
course,
he's watched me play for a long time. So maybe it's time, for a role reversal.
That's great.
When you came out of Michigan State, I mean, you didn't get drafted.
Yep.
And I don't know what your expectations were heading in, but to then have a 15-year career off of that. What were your expectations sort of when you arrived here in 2009? What were you hoping for?
I was just talking about this with my son the other day, and I said, listen, when I didn't get drafted, I kind of thought, okay, the Patriots are going to sign me. I'll learn from Tom Brady. Obviously, I watched Bill coach in Cleveland, so I always kind of had an affinity to him, and obviously him being a great coach, I thought it was a great opportunity to go learn, and I thought, maybe I'll make the practice squad. If I get released, at least I'll learn from these guys, and then sure enough, I kind of worked my way up the ranks and ended up being Tom's backup my rookie year. And, the things that I learned in those first 4 years were so invaluable to me that when I finally got some opportunities to play, you put those in motion and then you just keep stacking years. And the thing about the quarterback position is if you're relatively competent and you're a good guy and you make some connections, you just extend your career. When I look at last year, if Josh isn't the head coach in Las Vegas last year, then, maybe my career ends there. But, luckily for me, I've met a lot of great coaches, played with a lot of great players, and made a lot of great connections, which allowed me to do that.
That's a little bit unorthodox, Brian. As a rookie, now you're backing up Brady, who, by the way, is coming off a knee surgery at that point in time. Yep. And you're the only backup quarterback your rookie year. That was the same way in 2010. You're the only backup quarterback. Like, not a lot of teams did that. What was your thought process in that? Like, you want to talk about literally next man up and you're one pitch away.
Yeah.
You're one pitch away at that point in time.
I think I was too naive to even understand that at that point. Now looking back, when you realize like Tom's coming off a major knee reconstruction, had, some hiccups along the way, man, if I had to play that year, I don't know how ready I would have been. Obviously, Bill believed in me and Bill O'Brien believed in me. And so I'm sure it would have, worked itself out. We had a really good team, so I think I would have relied on those guys around me. But, at that point, I was just thrilled to be an NFL football player, and now I'm going to a meeting room every day with Tom Brady and soaking up what I can learn from him. And then, that went for 4 years, and then until I got released in 2012. So, those years, like, those are kind of like, the years you're building your foundation of your career, and I couldn't have done it in a better place.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that rookie season. You were part of some really good teams, and ultimately you were part of a champion in 18. But you had that great year in 2010. 2011, you go to the Super Bowl. In 2009, you probably didn't recognize it at the time. It's your rookie year.
Yeah.
But do you kind of look back and say that there was a little bit of something amiss in 2009? That's sort of the way it's kind of viewed here. That was kind of a reset year. And we're very spoiled because we've been part of a lot of good.
When I didn't know any better,
so
I'm from
10,
Cleveland,
10 and 6 going to the playoffs and all that stuff is not.
I thought
really
it was
a bad
great. I'm
year.
like, man, I'm on a great team.
But did you sense any like sort of dysfunction at the time, or maybe looking back at it, do you feel like that wasn't the same as some of the better teams that you were on?
Definitely wasn't the same. I think looking back now, knowing what I know and being on some great teams, it wasn't. There was definitely some learning curve. There was some adjusting to new. That was Bill O'Brien's first year as a coordinator here. So now I know how important that is, being a quarterback when you're learning, even if you're keeping somewhat of the system intact, you're working with someone new. And that was, so those were kind of, I guess you call growing pains. But I thought like, man, we're going to the playoffs. Like I'm on the Patriots. This is like a Super Bowl organization. Like, okay, 1 year, we didn't win the Super Bowl, but I'm like, oh, we'll win it next year. I think that's kind of the expectation you have when you come into that organization. And I've always said this. I've always looked at it when Tom Brady was the quarterback. I never went into a game thinking we're not going to win, ever. There was never. And I've been on other teams, whether I was the quarterback or someone else is the quarterback, and I'm like, man, I don't know how
gonna
much
be
of a
tough
chance
today.
we have this Sunday. And I can honestly say every game that I ever played here, backing Tom up, that there was I never had that feeling. And obviously a lot of other players around that. But, you know, when I talk to a lot of my old teammates, I think that feeling was very, similar.
Yeah.
When someone accidentally threw away the school play costumes,
Oh no.
replacements were shipped with FedEx. And with picture proof of delivery, everyone could focus on the perfect opening night. FedEx, where now meets next. For residential delivery only.
And now, great moments in history.
I don't know. I know it could easily go the other way, and they could be in the Super Bowl next year. Nobody would be that shocked, but it's not. I feel like it's being taught like they're a top 10 team in power rankings and all this stuff, and it's being talked about like it's like guaranteed that this is going to work out.
But I think they're thinking about like Bryce Hall being back. Like.
Yeah, that doesn't move the needle for me.
Well, who do you
But
think's
I agree.
better?
I agree with what you're saying. I'm just saying I don't.
Who would you pick, them or Miami? Just take Patriots out of the take Patriots and Bills out of the situation. Who do you think's the better team between the Jets with Aaron Rodgers and
Jets?
I think Miami.
What?
I think Miami.
Based on what?
Their talent.
And the Jets
Now,
defense?
now, if you're asking me who I'm going to invest in, I think there's a better chance that Aaron Rodgers plays 17 games than Tua.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Right.
But if I think at full strength, I think Miami's better.
Yeah.
That's okay. You don't have to agree. He's disgusted at me. You see that?
I'm
he like turned the other way like, this guy.
That's another great moment from
Patriots Unfiltered.
We're back. Excuse me. That was Field Yates from ESPN. Thank you for joining us on the WebEx Cisco hotline, I guess.
Hot link?
Yeah.
Hot link.
Anyway, we used that for during the draft, Elliott, and we had
Cam Williams?
Cam Williams and Matt Groh on that. So it's a good little addition.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Hear from the temperature test from the national pundits.
Yeah. Web radio at patriots.com is the email address. 855-PATS-500 is the Ace Ticket hotline. Let's get right to the phones. Dylan's in South Florida. What's up, Dylan? Dylan. Oh,
Maybe it's Dylan.
Yeah. Dial in, Dylan.
Oh my God.
It's Dylan.
Jackson in Alabama. What's up, Jackson?
What's up, guys? How are y'all?
Good.
Hey.
I love that Phil Yates interview, man. I've always respected Phil ever since he's been covering the Patriots.
He works
just want
hard.
to say also that I agree with Evan with the Joe Milton situation, and just kind of wondering what you guys think in terms of who's going to be guiding Drake May through this process.
Yeah.
Is it going to be AVP?
Yep.
I think for the most part, but I think,
McAdoo.
I think McAdoo's going to help. And
T.C. McCartney.
It's going to take a village.
Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, okay, I'm
Go ahead.
I'm good with Jacoby Brissett going into it with him. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not sold on the AVP situation. I would like to get your guys' opinion. I'll take it off the air. I love you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jackson. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know about. I think I'm less sold about AVP the play caller than I am AVP the quarterback's coach. I mean, this guy played quarterback in the league and has been coaching quarterbacks for like 20 years. And, I understand that they're not all hits. No one has straight hits all the time, but he's worked with some really good quarterbacks and guys that he's helped. I think. I mean, I remember in Green Bay when he got let go, Aaron Rodgers was not happy about it. Aaron Rodgers really went to bat for him publicly.
That was a day that ended in day.
And
Aaron Rodgers wasn't happy.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things about. Especially like the way their footwork and their fakes on play actions and stuff like that he coaches that kind of to hide the ball, and he coaches to keep it here and then use your other hand, and that kind of sells the fake to the defense. Little things like that I feel like I can say, he's there's some nuance.
Here's
here.
the thing: who on the team will be able to say, other than obviously his performance in the field, but who on the team will be able to say AVP's doing a good job with him? Ben McAdoo's because Gerard's a defensive guy,
right? Yeah,
and he doesn't Well,
it's hard to tell individually.
Will
but
he be able to know? Yeah, he's doing right by Drake May.
Well, again, I mean, I think it just looks the comfort in the offense, and especially with the quick reads and seeing what's open, and it's not tuck and
Well,
run.
and just like he's going to come in at a baseline of ability. Does that gradually go up? Remember, Bill used to say they come in here, and then once they stop ascending is when you have to cut ties.
Yeah.
Right.
So those little things, we talk about all the cliches, the footwork, the accuracy. If that looks like it's improving, I would credit whoever's working directly with him.
Yeah.
I will say this about Alex Van Pelt. I've talked to a couple of guys that are not with the team anymore. Brian Hoyer, very briefly, Drew Bledsoe. Like, these guys rave about him, the person.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Van Pelt, the person. Now, Hoyer played for him a little bit, so he had some of that. But I don't find anybody that has anything bad to say about Alex Van Pelt.
No, I would say, too, like, it's I don't know how much credit to give him for last year with the Browns, because we talked about it on the show, and we never, it was always kind of Stefanski. But, the job that they did last year, 4 quarterbacks? Is that what they played?
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I know he was out at the end.
It's a credit blame thing.
Yeah.
It's
right.
I give them a lot of credit for patching it together and finding ways to stay relevant without a quarterback. But he lost his job because he couldn't do anything with the quarterback that he was supposed to do, because he insisted on doing his offense rather than one that suited Deshaun Watson. So I give him credit and blame at the same time. It's incredible that they were able to win games with DTR.
Joe Flacco off the couch.
Joe Flacco. Like, that's I don't care what you say. That's P.J. Walker, I think, won a game for him last year.
Yeah.
I mean, these are guys that really aren't NFL players.
Paul,
that's really hard to do.
Just like, I could never name off.
Why are you insulting PJ Walker like
that?
Well,
they actually started the fifth. I think Jeff Driscoll might have started the last one.
They didn't get a win with
but they didn't win.
Yeah,
right? F?
Yeah. But PJ Walker's the
They're
man.
scoffing at me
right?
again.
So don't.
You're
PJ, I
you're
love
still
PJ Walker.
trapped.
PJ Walker, XFL.
If you said
legend.
to me, Deuce, 5 quarterbacks that played for the Browns last year, go, I would have been like,
It's
Deshaun
funny. It's funny
Watson?
because their room is, besides Deshaun Watson, who I wish was not in the league. You have PJ Walker and DTR, who are 2 guys I love. I love both those guys. But yeah, I think with the Browns, it's all the macro level stuff with AVP, like play calling, design. Like, how much of that was Stefanski?
Mm-hmm.
Stefanski was the one calling plays. I'm not so worried about him coaching the positions. Like, I think that's what he's been doing for the last 30 years of his NFL career. I'm more worried about, game plan. Like, are they going to be a step ahead on the game plan? Are they going to, how he calls plays and sequences plays together, that kind of stuff, because he hasn't done it before without Stefanski.
Tyler in Providence writes in, I'm just curious your thoughts on which team benefited the most from Jaden Daniels' ascension this past year. Was it Washington being able to draft him, the Patriots still being able to draft a blue-chip quarterback even from the 3rd spot, or Arizona all but guaranteeing that they'd be able to draft the consensus top-ranked non-quarterback?
Patriots.
It's a fantastic question.
It's the Patriots.
I think the Patriots as well.
Aren't you contractually obligated to say that?
No,
That's
I really
what
feel
learned
that
in the
way.
first segment. So, yes, Patriots.
I do think that. And I think, we talked, Field a little bit about that. I mean, I do think that there's maybe a little bit closer to readiness, you would hope, with Jaden Daniels, and clearly Washington kind of feels like they're not really all that far off. So, maybe that influenced things. But for where the Patriots are right now, and they, are probably at ground zero of an offensive rebuild, 21-year-old kid with not a lot of mileage on him, that's what I wanted for the team.
All snark aside, I think the answer is the Patriots, and it's because 2 things. Number one, I like Drake May more than Jaden Daniels. I've made no bones about that from the start of the process. But also, the part that the emailer says, it allowed the Patriots to get one of the 3 quarterbacks.
Right. Exactly.
So if it was even if we take Jaden Daniels out of it and then Washington takes Drake May, the Patriots wouldn't have taken Jaden Daniels had he not exploded.
Yeah.
So now you're stuck without a quarterback, and it kind of like the way it looked at the end of the season. You're picking 3 in a 2-quarterback draft. Well, ultimately you ended up picking 3 in a 3-quarterback draft.
Yeah.
The Denver win doesn't look quite as bad.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it, is that it became a 3-quarterback draft, and you happen to be the one with the 3rd overall pick. Most years you wouldn't have had a quarterback to take, or you would have been reaching, significantly on.
And I know there were
6
6 ultimately in the top 12 picks, but I don't think. I think we can all agree we wouldn't have wanted to had to take Penix or Nix.
Yeah. I feel like going off what Field Yates said earlier, like with those 3, there was no consolation prize. Whereas if you had to draft the 4th or 5th best one, it would have been a consolation prize.
Don't tell the Falcons that.
Right.
Well, it definitely seems like even those teams, I wouldn't call them consolation prizes, but those teams seem to have much lower grades on those quarterbacks and where they took them, but they're quarterbacks. So they had the quarterback tax. Like Bo Nix, I saw some report that Denver thought Bo Nix was like probably like a high-end second-round pick on their board, but they took him because of some crazy story about like his visit to Denver. He had like a backpack with him, and Sean Payton asked him like what was in the backpack. And it was all like football stuff. It was like cleats and tape and like all. And he was like, "That's a football guy." So now I'm gonna take him 12 overall.
Is this the man?
The backpack test.
So Fred,
what?
if someone shows up to a job interview
Dora the Explorer
with
out
a
there?
laptop, a binder, a pen, a paper.
That's it. You got the job.
Okay, so
it was the most wild thing.
I'm gonna
I've
say
ever
I'd
read.
No, it's like a
Probably-
microphone, one of those like halo lights.
Yeah.
Because he had
that would be
cleats in
terrible.
his
That's the most
backpack.
unbelievable story I've ever. I'm
What
going
are
to
you
say I
doing?
probably owe Fred and Tamara an apology for earlier in the show anyway. But now I really owe you an apology because at least you just took a guy in the 6th round. You didn't worry about what was in his backpack. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It was too good.
I really hope that is
my
sugar-coated because
God.
that is excellent.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
it was like there was like 3
That's
things.
amazing to
And
me.
it's so funny
And he
because
probably said it. You see what's in his backpack?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I got
the
a
way
spork. I got like
the way
I got a snack
the way it was
got some
written.
freeze-dried ice cream right here, just in case I get hungry.
The way it was
Evan would
written-
have like a Jersey Mike's, you know,
and then just a whole all
Some
22
scouting
computer
materials.
that he
The way it was written was like the paragraph of it was like a full paragraph of like, you know, he came in, this is what he had in his backpack, and then the next line is just like 3 words. It's like, it was all football, and period. Like it was like this,
like just off football.
like it was just this
Dude,
amazing
I
feat
mean-
that all he had in his backpack were cleats and tape.
After 6 years of playing college football, I mean, I
Right.
hope
He's
that you were
accumulated
prepared
a lot of
for it.
football stuff.
Oh God, it was
So
Trapper keeper?
another rant with the Penix thing.
Oh my God.
Have you noticed like there's a pushback? Like, oh, this is brilliant. You know, now you go right into it. You know, you have 2 years of Cousins right into this succession plan,
yes.
right?
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That
Yeah, so
narrative changed.
he'll be 35 when he gets on the field.
Which absolutely could happen. I'm not dismissing the possibility that it could happen. But A, why are we assuming it is going to happen that way? Why is Penix got less of a chance, more of a chance to hit than Daniels or May or whoever, McCarthy? He doesn't, right? It's
Right.
Let's face it, we don't know. So the other thing that I hear a lot, well, look at Green Bay. If I have to hear the look at Green Bay argument
Right.
one more time, forgetting the fact that Green Bay had a really good playoff team with Aaron Rodgers, so you didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
I would argue, especially the last time when they drafted Jordan Love, that was a dumb pick. I don't care what Jordan Love is doing right now. They potentially sacrificed possible Super Bowls by not taking the talent to help the team. They were Aaron Rodgers was the MVP
Begging
of the
for a
league.
wide receiver.
And
Begging.
you intentionally gave him nothing to help that particular year. What was it, 2020?
2020.
Right? That was
Yeah.
he was the
Yeah,
fourth.
Yeah,
of
that
the,
was the
he
COVID
was,
year.
He was the fourth of the 5 really good quarterbacks.
We were in the war room.
That was a
when we
great
were supposed to
quarterback
be.
class.
It's not out yet, Fred.
Hey, Fred.
Don't look at each other.
But
fine.
like
Statute of
I
limitations.
don't understand why we just sit there and praise a team that intentionally didn't maximize its window. They went out of their way not to be as good as they could be.
The only excuse for the Falcons is that, and it's not an excuse because this is bad on them for not recognizing it, is that Kirk Cousins' Achilles is shot. And so now,
If there's something
just
like
lit
that,
somebody on
It's
fire.
something they know.
right.
Yeah.
But I would say that the other thing that is so confusing is that you took the oldest quarterback in the draft.
Yeah.
So now you're going to sit him for 2 years. He's going to be 40 by the time he gets on the field.
but if
like, at
Atlanta-
least take J.J. McCarthy, who's 20.
if Atlanta
like,
goes like 12-5 this year and they get knocked out of the divisional round, you're not going to sit there and look and say, "Geez, you know what? We were a cornerback away."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
anything
we were
else.
an edge
Or
rusher
anything
away.
else.
You know, like
Yeah.
that might have put us over the top.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, they've got talent down there, but they're not
good.
stacked.
No, but
Yeah.
they're really good.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
I think they could make a run.
Yeah.
It's a terrible
No,
conference.
but I'm saying it's not like they couldn't have used another good player.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
a really
Exactly.
bad division. The conference itself is not overly deep. You know, it's San Francisco.
Except for the NFC North, Paul. Am I wrong?
he's pants off for the NFC North. I love it. I love it.
Why is he pants up?
The Lions,
the Packers, the Lions,
the Bears.
Bears did pretty good too.
Lions.
Oh my.
The Vikings are
God.
purple.
Dan
I like
Campbell.
purple.
Lions, Packers, and Bears.
But I get that it's smart business to take quarterbacks, and having a succession plan avoids the situation the Patriots were in. But
Not
at least
a
when the
detriment to the
but at
current
least
team.
the Patriots, they were winning titles when they were ignoring the future. If I was Green Bay, I would rather have won a title or two in the twilight years of Aaron Rodgers' career than have the guy that's in place now. I would take that draw. Take that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly what the Patriots did in 2018.
That's my point.
They could have drafted Lamar Jackson in 2018, and he could have sat behind Brady for 2 years. But instead, they drafted Sony Michel, who ended up helping them win a Super Bowl.
Helped them. I'm not telling you they wouldn't
There you
have won without him, but he helped them.
Yeah.
It was part of it. Spee in Fresno, did you guys see Josh Allen as an outlier in terms of how he overcame his accuracy issues? I definitely did in his rookie year. I was sure his goose was cooked. What are other examples of quarterbacks who similarly developed to overcome that level of inconsistency? Just wondering if we need to hope Drake May is a similar kind of freak outlier, or if instead it's a realistic hope for him to overcome his technical issues.
Well, two things. One, he's a more accurate quarterback coming in than Josh Allen was. Josh Allen completed like 58% of his passes in his last year at Wyoming.
Against a really low level of competition.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely more accurate, but I'd also say if he hits on Josh Allen's level, he's an outlier no matter how he got there. Like the bottom line is that hitting at the quarterback position is an outlier. Like it's more times than not the guys fail than succeed.
Yeah, I don't know that there are a ton of quarterbacks that come into the league with accuracy as being a main weakness. So to answer his point, I don't know if there are more guys than Josh Allen.
What was
It doesn't really make sense,
I think
does it?
I think Jake Locker was
Lamar.
one, and he
Yeah.
didn't.
Like,
He wasn't
didn't work out.
inaccurate though. Lamar wasn't inaccurate. He just his mechanics were not exactly where they needed to be. Yet.
I mean, he can't throw it
No,
to
but
the
that's
receivers.
but that's a good one too.
Yeah.
There's a guy who
Still
had some
really good.
mechanical flaws, and
Yeah.
he overcame them.
Yeah, no,
And
Josh
Mike,
Allen
you can
was
vouch for me. Josh Allen's rookie year, I was all in. I was like, "Whoa, did you see that throw?"
Josh Allen was a little bit more wild. He was a little bit more wild than Drake May.
James Pettigrew, the most interesting Patriots fan in the world, says, I can't believe the negativity over the draft and was disappointed you guys felt the need to defend what is plain to anyone, a good draft that has awesome potential. Having been in studio with you guys for a draft show and witnessing the Razai Dowling pick, anyone who says nothing has changed or nothing to be excited about is nuts. I was a maniac before the draft, and I'm very excited. Okay.
Did we?
Usually,
Was we
James
saying
is
we
a-
were trying to defend that it wasn't a bad draft?
I don't know.
I mean everybody thinks it's pretty good. I mean any draft is like we'll see. I mean
Well, to me, I don't know if any of these guys are going to work
Right.
out.
Yeah.
To me, it was just like I said at the beginning. They needed they had three glaring needs, and whether or not the guys will fill those needs, they pick guys
tried,
to help fill those needs.
Yeah.
And that's rare. We've never really
Right.
done that before.
Right.
Unless we were wrong about what the needs were, we never were right.
That's what's like hard for me with some of these draft grades, where it was like, well, what would it have been then if they had gone and taken like an edge defender? Like, what would you have said then? Like,
Right.
are these people willing to be like, well, it was a great edge defender, and I love this move,
So,
and
yeah,
even
that's
though it
the
wasn't a
difference.
need, I let you know.
I feel like the difference, and again, we don't know because we don't have the boards and stuff, but I feel like Bill probably would have gotten to some of these picks and said, I know we need a wide receiver, but I don't have this wide receiver ranked high enough to take him here. And he would have moved down.
Cooper DeJean.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Or there's a defensive tackle that I love, and
No, but
let's go.
he would have stuck closer to
Yeah.
his board.
Yeah.
And I don't know that maybe the Patriots did too. This is why I said we don't know.
Yeah.
For all I know, Elliott Wolf had Jalen Polk 37th on his board. And he took him. I don't know what his board looked like, but my guess is Fred's right. It's hard to imagine quarterback, wide receiver, tackle, Bill going quarterback, wide receiver, tackle.
It just never happened.
I just feel like Bill, outside of the like left field picks that we all know of, I feel like outside of the first round, he was always thinking a year ahead with the draft. He always felt like that's what the draft is all about. That free agency is about plugging your immediate holes. the draft is about we have
I
all
couldn't
these
agree more.
we have all these
That's
free
what he
agents
did.
on defense next year
Yeah.
that Deuce was talking about
Yeah.
earlier. So I'm going to draft a defensive tackle. I'm going to draft this. I'm going to draft that because I have to draft an edge rusher because Matthew Judon's a free agent and we're not going to pay him.
Yep.
You know, and that sort of thing. Whereas this draft for the Patriots was a needs-based draft. They attacked the most glaring needs on the team, and I don't know if Bill would have done it that way.
And, you know, again, during Brady, you can do it that way. But, you know, as Patriots fans, we get frustrated when we see other teams draft rookies and these guys are good right out of the gate. And we're like, well, why can't we get guys like that, you know?
Yeah.
And I think we did with Gonzalez. He got hurt. But I think
to expand upon Evan's point is that even when you did take some of those rookies, it was hard for a lot of them to get on the field.
It's true.
They get on the field and they're right back off the field because of a mistake or
And
something
you
like
started
that.
to finally see when they had a couple of years of
right, and then they're
poor
getting ready
play,
for free
but-
agency, and all right, now we got to draft a
but no,
replacement.
but I mean, like
Yeah.
last year, there was no like, oh, it's hard to see Gonzo out there. No, it's like day one training camp. There he is.
But I think, you know, credit to Bill, like, he really ran this thing like football university. And Bill, this is a hard place to play. And if it's a hard place to play, it's a hard place to break into for a rookie.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain mentality, and I think it took a little time for most rookies to get it here, and you know either they did or they didn't, and that contributed to guys just not seeing the field right away, and Bill knowing that and saying, you know, I got to get a guy assimilated. He's not going to hit the field, so I do need to think a year in advance.
But the funny part of that to me is it seemed like they had the most success as a team when they were, when Richard Seymour and Matt Light were starting week one.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
when
true.
Devin
when
McCourty.
Eugene Wilson and Asante Samuel were playing key roles in year one.
Devin
Dan
McCourty,
Copen
Gronk.
starting. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Forget about McCourty, Gronk, Hernandez.
Yeah.
That was a huge part of
Yeah.
the team's
Yeah.
success.
Yeah.
Chandler Jones and Dante Hightower scoring a touchdown
Right,
in
for the first game.
week
I
of
felt
the-
like when they
together.
were at their best, these guys were playing right away.
Yeah, that's
Then,
true.
then they sort of
You're right.
got away from that. But
And they were also
that's
great
a chicken
at,
or the egg thing.
Yeah.
Were the rookies not as good?
Yeah.
Were they not hitting as many draft picks? Or
But I think it was a hard place to play.
Oh,
yeah,
for sure.
But I think they were great for the long period of time of the year ahead thing.
oh yeah,
And he was always a year ahead. Like he
Solder.
always had somebody in the pipeline for somebody retiring,
Light.
somebody getting overpaid or whatever. And then towards the end, they weren't a year ahead. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it was
No,
like
now they're
there was a million
behind.
holes in the rowboat, and they were kept
Well,
on trying to fill
You
them.
know, that classic book, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. It wasn't just one thing.
are you thinking about that? Right
It was
now?
all, yeah. I was thinking
Is
about
that
the
your Roman Empire?
Right.
The book about it is
Right.
his Roman
but
Empire.
like there's
That's
all
old. That's old now,
it,
right?
it was like a million cuts.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the brain
It's
drain.
never old.
Ernie and Dante and all these people leaving, and you know, it all contributed to.
And I've always reduced it down to, it's really tied heavily into what we're talking about, where they had a good system going, where they were ahead of the game, and then they got behind the game, and I think a series of not just bad draft picks, but bad decisions on a lot of those draft picks too. You know, we talked about like Tooney. If you just bit the bullet,
Right.
lock Tooney up for a while, then the Cole Strange thing, you know, all the like Michael Onwenu pops up, great. We got two guys now. But you know that's where I point to, and I would also say, I think that it started to get a little old for a lot of these guys, and I think as you lost the Bradys of the world, not just his amazing on-field play, but the guys that were totally bought in, that were here at 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. no problem. You know, as that stuff left and you had less and less leaders, and it's just kind of Matthew Slater and David Andrews being like, we got to work harder, guys. And, you know, they're like, but Bill's a jerk to me all the time, and I don't really want to play for him anymore.
big
you
fat
know, like,
jerk face.
like that's.
and he's not going to pay me after
Yeah.
the season, and then
That's
we're going to.
Well, I think the economic part of it might be the biggest difference, because I think Bill was always so conscious of that structure, and then I don't think he really adjusted to the caps adjustment, and he sort of stuck to those philosophies, and so many guys didn't get, because back in the day, the guys that got second contracts kind of took less. You know, the Jarvis Greens,
'Cause we're
the
winning
Vrabels,
championships
they were
and-
really good players. They got more contracts, but they didn't like break the bank. And all of a sudden, like guys like Trey Flowers are coming up, and they're getting good contracts because the cap is exceedingly rising.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I can't give that guy that. But Bill, that's what those guys make now.
Yeah, it's so true. At the offensive skill positions, especially like the Patriots, we're just not going to pay a receiver $25 million. But that's what the market dictates now, that Calvin Ridley is worth $25 million. And if you're not going to pay that in price, then you'll get Juju Smith-Schuster.
Do you think
that I would say 1,000% there's no way Bill would have given that contract offer
Do you
to
think
Calvin
there's any
Ridley?
truth to what your guys say, Paul? The Felger
Probably
and
what do
Maz,
they say now?
that no one could make more than Bill. Like remember they had that one. It started out as conjecture. By the end of the show, it was fact.
Well, that's the Felger and Maz way.
But like
established
it's
law.
never been.
That's tenet number one. Throw something at the wall.
Yeah.
By the end of the show, it's fact.
I just want to tell them that my big board beat their big board.
Oh.
So
they had a bad year. I think they only had one.
So
hit.
you mean throwing markers at a whiteboard
Well,
didn't beat
no,
your board?
well, yesterday I told you I
and
was,
and you're taking a pat on the back for that.
because yesterday I was listening and Felger was like, nobody hits more than I do on the big board. I was like, one person did.
But to the
I
point,
don't know.
He was so upset that they only had one hit that he's.
They too. I think they had Bell too, didn't they?
Oh, they
Didn't
had
have
two.
the
They had
offensive line?
Jaheim Bell.
He wants to pull the plug on it.
Oh,
because he's like.
I thought it was a sponsored element.
Well, that's what they all said. Well, we're making money,
I'm
so it ain't
also
going
like
anywhere.
half kidding, but Deuce and I both.
I know you. I know you.
So to that same point, though, if Bill ended up going to Atlanta, do you think he would have signed Kirk Cousins for that much money?
Oh, it's a good question.
I actually
or would
think
he
he
have
might
like
have.
would he have?
I don't know what the
stopped
contract would have
that?
been, but I do think he would have been strongly interested.
I don't think
in
he
it.
would have taken
Especially because of his
Penix, though.
at some point
No, he would
his
not have
age
taken
has to be
Penix.
a factor, and like his window is so small that
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins was perfect for him.
Because I was going to
feel
say,
like.
do you think he would have taken Kirk Cousins, or do you think he would have looked at the draft board and been like, okay, we're at 8, like we'll just get one?
Yeah. Speaking of
Or
Bill,
is
he's
he
going to
too
be
young,
on
too old?
He's going to be on Pat McAfee every Monday
Oh.
during the season, I think.
He was. I
At
enjoyed
some
it.
point, though, McAfee has to stop groveling. Like, no, I'm serious.
it's a lot of
that
that.
will get old.
Yeah, well,
like
see-
he's got to mix it up.
I just get the clips, but I think it's a great part of Bill. It's a side of Bill that we barely ever saw when he was a coach, and now if we're gonna get it once a week and get, I'm psyched. I mean, that's so much. This
I
is the Bill
assume I'll see
Belichick
the
you
clips.
love.
But-
Yeah, well, that's
yeah.
what I'll
But
see
like-
too. I won't watch it,
I
but
have no real interest.
But
you know
like-
there'll be good stuff.
You know, Bill was on and he was talking about Drake May, not Drake May. Yeah, Drake May, and he said, he's comparing himself to, Josh Allen, and we'll see about that. I know a lot of people have compared him.
I
But
thought that was unfair,
Does he
too,
go
Fred.
around saying I'm Josh Allen, or I'm going to be Josh Allen, or I'm like
He had
Josh?
a comment at some point where he said something. I'm paraphrasing something along the lines of, "Some people have said there's some similarities to Josh Allen's game, or I like watching Josh Allen play, or something like that."
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Not like I'm like Josh
Yeah,
Allen.
I mean,
I'm the next Josh
every
Allen.
every player gets asked, who's the pro that you emulate?
you like to watch.
You
Yeah.
model your game after.
And that's, I think, the question that he answered.
Yeah, and someone asked Jalen Polk, and he said Keenan Allen.
Right.
Does Jalen Polk think he's Keenan Allen?
Right.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, does Bill go to
we'll see
the
about
whiteboard and say, this guy compares himself to Keenan Allen? I don't know about that.
Right. So I thought that was a
Shut
little bit
your mouth.
unfair, unless there's stuff that he said that I'm not aware of.
Yeah,
Drake May.
that's true. But that's what I had heard.
It did feel
is-
like a little.
Yeah,
I mean, and the rest of it I thought was kind of overblown, but I do think I'm like, when did he say that? I don't
When it comes
remember.
to public comments, whether it's a press conference, I've been at every single thing that Drake May has said this offseason, pro day, combine, whatever. I have never once heard him say, I'm Josh Allen 2.0.
I would also add that he hates Josh Allen with the fiery depths of hell.
He still thinks he stinks.
Still thinks he stinks.
Yeah.
So at some point, if he says things like that, somebody on the show, and you would think it'd be McAfee, has to push back. Well, when did he say that?
Yeah.
Make him back it up.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting because we know what Bill's like. He's when he was in position of power at the podium, and
Right.
people try to go back and forth, and he would just shut it down. But like
We're on to
on TV, he's like, we're on to the next segment.
Yeah.
We're on to the commercial. Like, no, Bill, just like, we're on to the commercial.
Foxy rolling.
We're doing a follow-up here.
I can just see him pat him. I'm just doing what's in the best interest of the show. All right.
I love
Let's
him.
get back to the phones. Matt's in Iowa. Hey, Matt. Matt, what is going on?
Yeah, no.
Oh, there he is. There's Matt. Hey, Matt.
Hey. So, Paul, I did have one thing to dispute on what you said. You said that each team only needs one quarterback. That's wrong.
Well,
They need at least
yeah,
two
but I know
quarterbacks.
what Paul's saying.
Only one can play at a time. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah.
But now I've rethought that, so don't worry about it.
Okay. All right. My question to y'all is, now that we have 2 wide receivers that we drafted, what does our wide receiver room look like, and who do y'all expect to make it out?
Deuce is going to give us his early
I got a color
quarterback
printer- I
room
got a color
projection.
printer back, too, guys.
What's
Oh,
your
God, he's
what's
so
your depth
excited
chart
about the
right now?
color
Who
printer.
makes
I
this
love it.
team?
We got KJ Osborne. I think he's a lock. I think Demario Douglas is a lock. Jalen Polk, of course, and Javon Baker
The
are
Jays.
locks.
We're calling them the
Jays.
Jays. Yeah. J squared.
And then I think
Just the
I
Jays.
think Kendrick Bourne probably a lock, but I just wonder if he could be a PUP guy because he's injured. He sounds like he's going to be healthy. But those are my my top 5, and then whatever.
I think Jalen Rager, just because of his return ability,
Maybe
has a
as
good
the-
chance.
Okay, can we just have Marcus Jones be the punt returner?
Well, he's going to be the punt returner, but Jalen Rager might be the kick returner.
Yeah.
I don't know how the new rules. Marcus Jones might be better at both than he is,
Or
and maybe
Marcus Jones could be a kick returner.
or maybe that will push him off the roster. But I think if you're going to keep 6 receivers, the 6th guy better have some kick game value.
Yeah,
like you
right.
can't just have Juju collecting paychecks on the sideline.
What about the new rules on kickoffs? Does that change the type of guy that you have
wonder about
returning?
It's possible. I mean, Jalen Rager was really good at the traditional kickoff. I don't know if he's going to be really good at the new one. We'll see. And that could, to Tamara's point, be Marcus Jones's job because there are a lot of people who have said
Marcus
it.
Jones is really good at returning.
There's a lot of people that have
What
said
about a
it's-
bigger running back kicking, returning?
Maybe.
kicks?
I don't know if it would
you gotta
change
be able
the
to hit the hole,
return.
though.
It could change the coverage guys.
Yeah.
You might want some bulkier guys
At the
on
point of
coverage.
attack.
I mean,
yeah.
you might want a little tackle breaking ability because it
Well, that's the
seems like
thing.
you're going to have to get
So
through some
what's the
holes
rule?
rather than
No one can move
seams.
until it's caught.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's you're
Yeah.
basically starting from a dead start there for everybody. You know.
Yeah.
And
I think explosiveness is the most important thing still, though. Like, if you see a crease, you
Oh,
have to
yeah.
be able to run through it.
and there's a good chance once you get through that crease,
You're gone.
You're gone.
Yeah.
I think early on in the season, we're going to see a lot of kickoff returns for touchdowns before teams start to figure out how to defend it.
Training camp will be interesting. Just they're
Yeah.
going to have to start working on it.
Yeah.
You know?
So I don't know if who you looked at in the past.
I'm going to
as
put that in the
kick
top 5
return.
things that will overestimate
Like
his
observations.
Is a Marcus Jones best suited for this new rule? Maybe not.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
See, I kind of, I don't know. We'll
Thanks,
see.
Matt.
He's so good.
I think it's still going to be the return guy. I think still has to have that kind of
Straight line speed.
quick twitch,
Burst.
change of direction, get north and
Go.
south.
Yeah, more like Cordero Patterson than Marcus Jones is more of like the joystick
beep,
type
beep,
of guy.
beep. Yeah.
You know, and
I like that.
Yeah.
I want a guy who can make a guy miss and then
Go.
take it.
Yeah.
To Fred's point, if you can get past the initial line of sort of congestion there and get to the second level, it's like a running play.
Yep.
It's like a short yardage running play in
Right.
the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really wonder if this rule had gone into place earlier. Cordero Patterson might have actually made some real money in free agency because he not only does he have the kick,
He had both.
he has running back experience
Yeah.
too.
But he has the size and strength to break through and then the speed to
Yeah.
dust people.
Do you think it's possible that this new kickoff rule, they blow up and it's all of a sudden multiple scores to
Yes.
an unexpected level
But
of
don't
the
you think
NFL's
that
oh
the
crap,
solution
this
to
is
that
too
is
much.
to just if it's a problem.
And Bill
And I-
Lion will change the rule.
And I agree with Evan that I think early in the season you tend to see some returns anyway.
Yeah.
But I think with the adjustment, there's probably more of a likelihood. But wouldn't you just say, okay, I'm just going to touchback? I don't care.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm not going
have
to give
to.
up.
Right.
I'm not going to give up an 80-yard touchdown. I'm just going to give him the ball at the 30.
Right.
Gonna have to.
Yeah.
Rudy's in California. We'll finish up with you. What's up, Rudy?
Rudy.
Make it good, Rudy.
Rudy.
Wow, he's not there.
Well, on that note,
All right. Well, Rudy, you're gone. You had your chance.
You're an
that was your
All-American and a
shot.
captain.
You had one
Actually,
shot.
I know he was going to
Eminem,
come.
right?
He's going to come
He had
running
one
out of the
shot.
tunnel with his golden helmet flashing and.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for this edition of
You ready,
Patriots
champ?
Unfiltered. What's coming up this week? Catch 22 was
already did
already.
it.
We
Yeah.
already had that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thursday and
No playbook this week.
I'm not going to
No?
say anything. I'm not going to say what it is, but Paul and I are working on a very exciting project tomorrow that I'm very excited to share with everybody.
Oh,
And,
yeah?
it's
Oh.
new and
Any hints?
former Patriots offensive coordinator will be participating in it. So
Nice.
Talking
That's
about a
awesome.
former Patriots quarterback.
Nice.
oh,
All right.
now I know what it is.
Sounds good. All right. We'll talk to you on Thursday.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.